They said he was invincible. They said he had no chance.
This is what you came for. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on!
There's the kick to the head.
We have a unanimous decision with the winner and new UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Maurice Smith.
82 days after one of the most stunning upsets in UFC history, Maurice Smith is back to defend his title against the most dangerous fighter in the octagon, the UFC's infamous bad boy, David Tank Abbott. Also, Brazilian phenom Vitor Belfort versus American wrestling legend Randy Couture. A double main event, plus the heavyweight tournament. The Ultimate Fighting Championship is on a collision course with destiny. Let's open up the gate.
We're in the heart of the Mississippi Gulf Coast in beautiful Bay St. Louis, the playground of the South. 26 miles of sandy beaches and southern hospitality. Great fishing, fresh seafood, and the glorious waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Once a sleepy town, it has come alive. And tonight we're at Casino Magic, the first barge concept casino in the world. Are setting the Magic Dome, the boxing mecca of the South. This venue has hosted 18 championship fights in the past 5 years and has featured 36 world champions. And tonight it plays host to Fistic Fury of a different sort, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bruce Beck. Welcome to UFC 15, entitled The Collision Course. First of all, a piece of news. Dan Severn is out, injured right hand. All the calls went out by the UFC hierarchy, and the only man who answered the call was David Tank Abbott, the man who is known for his punching power, the bad boy of the UFC. Always wanted to take a good fight, even on short notice. So tonight it's Maurice Smith against David Tank Abbott. Also this evening, and what could be a show stealer, we've got an elimination bout for the UFC Championship. Vitor Belfort against Randy Couture, two gentlemen who have already captured tournaments in the UFC. So it's a big night of action, and it's aptly entitled Collision Course. My broadcast partner, the man who won the 1984 Olympic gold medal in the Greco-Roman wrestling super heavyweight division, Jeff Blatton. Again, Jeff, we've got a co-feature for the first time.
Oh, without a doubt, a double main draw. You're talking Maurice Smith, the defending champion, and Coleman is out because of an injury for the rematch. Severn is out as the challenger, a three-time UFC champion. Tank Abbott answers the bell, and Abbott is a great puncher. He is always dangerous, and on short notice, he says he's got nothing to lose. Let's go after him. Belfort against Couture. Belfort, a phenom puncher. We have, without doubt, the quickest hands we've seen here in the UFC, but we've never seen him fight on the ground. A Carlson Gracie jiu-jitsu protege. He's going up against Randy Couture, world-class wrestler. This might be the first time we see Belfort on the ground.
Now, it truly is a night of heavyweights because we've got a four-man heavyweight tournament, Jeff, and we've got two veterans and two newcomers.
That's right. The two veterans, Kerr, the UFC 14 champion, and Beneteau, the runner-up in UFC 5. Add to that Carlos Barreto, another Carlson Gracie athlete, and look for him to be very dangerous in the guard, particularly the triangle choke. And then there's newcomer Ranger Stott. Stott looking to make his mark.
Now also tonight, the third member of our broadcast team is Joe Rogan, who will be patrolling the backdrop here at the in Mississippi. And earlier tonight, Joe caught up with the UFC medical director to talk about Dan Severn.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm here with Dr. Ishergo. Doctor, please tell us what happened to Dan Severn.
Dan Severn sustained an injury to his right hand, the fourth metacarpal phalangeal joint, which is the joint behind the fourth ring finger on his right hand. In layman's term, that means that he has a swelling of all of the tissue that is in his hand. Although it's not life-threatening, it's our opinion in the UFC that he's unable to go on, simply because it makes him a one-handed fighter.
Now, I understand that Dan Severn still wanted to fight despite this injury.
Dan Severn did want to go on just like any other athlete, but the bottom line is he's a one-handed fighter. He's unable to perform as well as he should. Therefore, he has to be disqualified from the tournament.
Okay, folks, well, there you have it. Dan Severn's out and Tank Abbott's in. Anything can happen in the UFC.
All right, Joe, here are the ways to win a fight tonight: by knockout, by submission. If the referee stops the contest because a fighter cannot intelligently defend himself, if the corner throws in a towel, by disqualification, or if time expires, 3 judges render a decision. I'll tell you, there's an air of excitement at Casino Magic in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, which opened in September of 1992. Now we open tonight with the alternates in the collision course. Alex Hunter against Harry Moskowitz. Alex Hunter, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stylist, and Harry Moskowitz, freestyle fighter. Harry Moskowitz getting set for tonight in the UFC in his debut.
Oh, I have them, but I prefer ground fighting out of all of it. If I have to stand up and fight, I will, but I prefer to fight on the ground.
Here he comes, Dirty Harry, a local product, fighting out of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Freestyle fighter, 5-2 in reality combat fights. First appearance in the UFC. A construction worker who likes the challenge of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Wanted to do this since he saw it for the first time.
Well, certainly he's a very big man. Freestyle fighting, he says he wants to go to the ground, but he's a big man with big punches, and I'm sure he wants to bring that power and size to bear on his smaller opponent.
Dirty Harry. There's a look at his discipline description. And Jeff, he is big. He is a bruiser.
Yes, he is. Size and power, that's probably his biggest advantage over his opponent. Says he's good on the ground, but he's also a very good striker. Look for him to probably go to that limited submissions.
Well, his opponent tonight has been in the UFC before, Alex the Chief Hunter. He loves to talk about respect.
Well, I respect anyone who comes in the ring, but I never assume anything about my opponent. Even if a reliable source tells me he's a striker, he's a grappler, whatever, I just never assume anything. I go in there with the idea that he knows everything and that he's good at everything.
Here comes the Chief, 1-0 in the UFC, defeated Sam Fulton in UFC 14. And he did it in 2 minutes and 30 seconds when the referee stopped the contest. 12-0 in local tournaments, all easy wins. Guy who spent some time in the Marines and recon in Camp Lejeune. Jeffy strong and 10 years in the martial arts.
Yes, he is, and he looks as though he's prepared himself well for this. Great physical condition. Looks very strong for his size, very, very developed. He's a jiu-jitsu stylist, so look for him to be good on the ground. He's also capable of striking. Experience is everything, Bruce. You know that. He was a first-timer last time and found success. So he's on a roll. He's confident. I'm sure he's improved his game. Good submissions, jiu-jitsu, powerful striker. We'll see against the big man. He's going to need it. And he has limited freestyle fighting experience, but basically no holds barred mixed martial arts. He's prepared.
So it's the Chief against Dirty Harry. And let's take a look at the specifics as we unveil the tale of the tape.
And certainly the weight is going to be a big issue with Moskowitz at 293 and Hunter at 210. Hunter is 6 years younger, and he's giving away a bunch of inches in addition to pounds. Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Casino Magic Dome in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Tonight, SCG Sports presents the only event of its kind. This unique event brings together 13 of the world's most elite fighters in the ultimate testing ground, the Octagon. Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Get ready for a collision course like you've never seen before. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to begin the Ultimate Fighting Championship! We begin our evening with the first bout, beginning an alternate tournament where the winners have a chance to advance to the finals. Starting with the fighter standing to my left. He's a freestyle fighter from Highlands, New Jersey, and fighting out of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. He has a record of 5-2 in mixed martial arts. He's 30 years old, standing 6 feet, 5 inches tall, and weighs in at 293 pounds. Please welcome in his Octagon debut, Dirty Harry Moskowitz. And the fighter standing to my right. He's from St. Petersburg, Florida. He's an expert in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fighting with a competition record of 12-0. He's 1-0 in the Octagon. Please welcome, standing at 5 feet, 9 inches tall, and weighing in at 210 pounds, Chief Hunter! When the action begins, our referee is Joe Hamilton.
Alternate bouts are 12 minutes. There will be 2 bouts tonight, and if someone is injured and unable to advance in the main draw of the heavyweight tournament, an alternate will take their place.
Here we go. Get set. Moskowitz has a 5-2 record in no holds barred and did compete in the IFC.
But he's never been in the UFC, and that is always a big question mark when you haven't been there before. Big Moskowitz, 293. Hunter is 210. Alternate referee Joe Hamilton for Provo, Utah, working his 10th UFC, 9 years in the LAPD before moving to Utah.
It's as though Hunter is measuring him out. Chief looking to possibly set him up with something there. He takes a shot at a double leg. Good power and knee drive trying to come up. Moskowitz looking for a guillotine choke.
Harry Moskowitz trying to sink that choke in. Backing up the smaller Chief Hunter. And Chief doing a good job to repel the challenge early.
Both spending a lot of energy in this sequence here. The Chief trying to lift that big body. Moskowitz trying to sink that guillotine choke, but unable to finish.
Almost a minute on their feet as Moskowitz tried to land a knee. Now looking for the choke. He picks him up and drops him.
He's in good position. He doesn't have a choke in there. Hands aren't gripped.
Another knee landed by Moskowitz. Again, he picks up his opponent.
It's not tactically a good situation for Moskowitz to try to lift him. He really doesn't have anything. It's more of a waste of energy.
Hunter tried to trip him up, but was unable to do so. Moskowitz so big. And now they break.
Let's go, let's go. Stay busy, stay busy.
Hamilton tells them to keep busy.
Let's go, stay busy now.
And now going for the double leg is the Chief. He runs Moskowitz all the way across the octagon.
And again, that's an awful lot of energy for the Chief to be expending. He drove a big body a long way, came away without any real improvement in position.
Over 2 minutes in, and all this fight has been on their feet.
It's clear Hunter wants to bring the fight down.
And already Hunter looks like he's winded.
He did spend a lot of energy, and these type of fights they go in spurts. There's a calm and relaxed time of setup, and then there's a flurry. Then it goes down to a more relaxed pace, and then a flurry. And certainly Hunter has expended a lot of energy early, and Moskowitz is doing well at countering the leg shots.
Moskowitz has picked up his opponent several times and dropped him back to the canvas on his feet. Now working on an arm.
And Hunter is now hanging onto the fence and not doing anything. This technically qualifies as perhaps a stall, hanging onto the fence, and Joe Hamilton, the referee, could break this.
That's all. You know the rules.
And there's an elbow landed by Moskowitz. Cannot land elbows to the head or the neck area. That was more the back. Over 3:20 in.
If Hunter continues his tactic, he's probably taking a break, getting his wind back. Oh, a good knee to the head.
Oh, he elevated that knee and showed pretty good flexibility. Now he hammers to the chest.
Moskowitz needs to be careful. If he gets too upright, Hunter could drop down behind both knees, grab that, and rip it out towards the center and possibly bring that big man down.
This is almost like a Davey and Goliath format with one guy 5'9", 210, the other 6'5", 293.
Moskowitz doesn't want to get frustrated here. Hunter's just waiting, looking for the opportunity.
And a right hand by the Chief, and another right hand. And now Moskowitz might go down. But again, he holds his center of gravity.
And once again, that's an awful lot of energy to spend to come away with nothing. But it's clear that Hunter definitely is resting when he's up against the fence, collecting himself, and then he comes out in a huge flurry. And both times Moskowitz has been able to repel that flurry. Even though Hunter had both legs, he never really got his hips underneath him to lift and finish that double-leg takedown.
Moskowitz showing pretty good
Another good
movement
knee
by a big guy. And balance as well. Twice he was sent all the way across the octagon, and Hunter came away with nothing. This bout scheduled for 12 minutes, no overtime. We'll have to go to the judges if we complete that 12-minute period.
Moskowitz looking to sink the guillotine choke again. Hunter able to counter. It's tough to get unless the man is low and trying to come up onto your legs, and then you have a good opportunity to sink it. And if he's in poor position, bent over at the waist, that's another good situation to go ahead and sink it. But when he's upright like this, it's awful hard. You have to somehow manage to get his body to bend in the middle, hinge in the middle, butt back.
Again, Moskowitz elevates his opponent, gets nothing for it. Hunter has spent time as a bouncer at a St. Petersburg area bar, but he hasn't thrown out guys as big as Moskowitz before.
Hunter also, as a jiu-jitsu stylist, is used to people trying to choke him. He's used to the guillotine choke, and I'm sure he's taught how to relax in there, how to just get a little bit of room and let the other man squeeze and pry and waste energy trying to choke him, when in fact he's just taking that to make the man burn energy. That's really a lot of jiu-jitsu, small incremental wins, and they add up over the course of the fight.
Might Hunter get fortunate to get his big opponent on the ground late where he's tired and then choke him out with his jiu-jitsu?
I'm sure that's exactly where he wants to take the big guy, and even though Moskowitz says he wants to fight on the ground, it was my feeling he wanted to keep it on the feet the whole time.
Moskowitz trying to apply a choke here.
Yeah, he needs to hook the foot. He needs to get that foot in, and if he can get the foot in, he can arch, and it's not so much pulling on the arms, it's bowing your chest forward, inhaling and bowing your chest forward, forcing pressure to the back of the head.
Oh, a good move by Hunter. He's in the side mount.
This fight can change radically now for Hunter. Hunter knows exactly where he is. He's resting.
How tired is Moskowitz?
Moskowitz right now is unfortunately caught in a side mount. He is now and should start to try to move his hips to try to get him into the guard. Hunter is waiting. He is going to raise up and start to throw blows down towards Moskowitz, and now he's mounted him.
He's mounted him, and let's see if Alex the Chief Hunter can land some blows. Moskowitz looks tired.
See if Moskowitz can get Hunter back into the guard. Right now he's content to lay there and just work with his hands to prevent blows, but the key to getting out is your hips. And Hunter has both those feet underneath the buttocks of Moskowitz, and if he elevates that, Moskowitz is grounded. He won't be able to move.
Stay working, stay working.
Positioning, the great equalizer when you're dealing with a huge weight disadvantage. And right now it is the Chief who is in good position with the mount.
Stay working, stay working.
Hunter studied under legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world man Sergio Montero.
Let's go. Stay working, stay working.
Moskowitz trying to get some energy up to reverse Hunter.
To really roll the man, you have to go directly over your head first to make the top man in the mount plant his arms. Once his arms are caught, you had to hook one of his feet with your heel, and then you can roll him.
Almost 8:30 in. Bout scheduled for 12 minutes, no overtime. Another effort, but not good enough by Moskowitz.
And Moskowitz needs to be careful. If he rolls to the side that way, he may
Stay working, keep it working.
He may make his back vulnerable, and Hunter will take his back, get behind him, and look for a full naked choke.
Another effort that proved to be feeble by Moskowitz. This is alternate bout 1. Ultimate Fighting Championship 15 collision course. 9 minutes in, 3 to go.
Well, it's so hard to tell who is winning this fight in striking. This has been the only action on the ground. And in terms of aggressiveness, it's been Hunter who's been attacking Moskowitz the whole fight, trying to take him down.
Hunter trying to enhance his position, but he's right up top where he wants to be. Maybe he needs to score a little more.
Well, it doesn't seem that Moskowitz is in any hurry to get Hunter off of him, to break them out, to get him into his guard. He's not trying to do that at all. Just every now and then he's rolling sideways, and it's really not an effective reversal technique. Again, he's got to move forward to get Hunter to plant his arms before going sideways.
I don't know if he has the energy right now to make a reversal. 10 minutes in, 2 to go. And it was Hunter who took over this fight with the side mount and then the full mount after about 6 minutes. So he's going to end up, as far as the judges are concerned, I would think, with the domination.
It's a close fight, but I do believe at this point Hunter is ahead. He's controlling the ground, and he's been the aggressor. Again, the strikes, even though he's in the mount, he is not really hitting Moskowitz with any effective punches. Yes, they are landing, but none of them are hurting Moskowitz at all.
He's going to win for ground attack, and he's going to win for overall being busier.
I believe that is the case at this point, Bruce. But I also have to believe that Hunter blew a lot of energy early in those huge double leg takedown events, and that's showing right now in his inability to raise up and try to be more offensive and effective in the mount.
And now, alternate referee Joe Hamilton will separate the fighters with a little bit over a minute to go. If there's a lack of action, the referee has the authority to restart the fight. And that's exactly what Joe did.
No. Turn around. Get ready.
And Moskowitz sneaks a quick swing over the top of the octagon.
You ready to continue? Get busy. Let's go.
Here we go. A little bit over a minute to go, and both fighters look tired. Very tired and disinterested right now. Who's going to be the aggressor?
Now, fatigue changes everyone. Fatigue has an effect on everyone. And it's only the great ones, the champs, that are able to maintain focus during fatigue.
Let's go.
You've got to reach deep down during these times.
And the aggressor has now changed. Moskowitz is moving in on Hunter. This is going to be a close fight for the judges.
Oh, by Hunter. Back to the side mount. The Chief with some quickness.
Well, that might do it for Hunter. He was smart. He waited for the big punch from Moskowitz. He went under it and took him down.
12 minutes complete. No overtime. It will go to the judges. 3 judges will score. Jeff Santella, 3-time Hall of Fame cross-training master, PKA, UFSKA kickboxing champion. Jeff Mullen, the former pro kickboxer from now owning Mid-South Karate, where he teaches self-defense at the University of Memphis. And Michael DePasquale Jr., a world-renowned jiu-jitsu expert, publisher and editor of Karate International magazine.
Here's the last takedown here. Moskowitz trying a right hook, and to his credit, the Chief dropping right under him. Textbook double leg takedown to a side mount. That might have been the difference in this fight. We felt he was ahead early, but when they got stood up, it seemed Moskowitz took over being the aggressor, but right away, Hunter took him down. Here's that reversal, getting to the side mount. Alex Hunter, the Chief, doing well, but both fighters looked tired at the end.
Absolutely, exhausted. I think Hunter weathered the storm early. You know, he was mature, he was patient, he didn't panic when he was picked up in the air 2 or 3 times and Moskowitz was looking for the choke out.
He certainly was looking for the guillotine choke, but when he was doing all the lifting against the fence, he really wasn't in a position to sink the hold tight and to use his chest and hips to add the pressure that really makes the choke work.
Standing by for Bruce Buffer's announcement from the judges as to who has won this fight. Now both men coming back to the center of the octagon. A judge can only go one way. He can't split his decision. It's a vote for one or the other. Let's go up to Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of 12 minutes, we have a final decision by the judges. Judge DePasquale votes Chief Hunter. Judge Jeff Mullen votes Moskowitz. Judge Jeff Santella votes for the winner, Chief Hunter!
So it's Alex Hunter by a split decision.
And Mr. Moskowitz.
And he wins the alternate contest, and he stays alive in the overall scheme of things tonight. If there should be need for a replacement in the main heavyweight tournament, which fields a group of 4. Good work by Hunter. Tired, but it's a lot better to go away with a win.
Well, certainly it is, but I do believe Hunter spent most of his energy in those sequences early trying to get those big takedowns. Here's that last time, a nice kick to the center. Moskowitz sprawls as Hunter tries the double leg takedown, and here he's trying to sink the hold, a guillotine choke. He needs to get the forearm under the chin. Once getting there, he wants to push his belly and chest forward, arch with the back, and lift at the neck, trying to bow the back up of Hunter, but he never had it sunk properly.
So we'll move on to our second alternate bout of the evening. And here's a look at the combatants. It'll be Houston Dorr against Dwayne Kaysen. Kaysen from Des Moines, Iowa, now fighting out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Kaysen, a newcomer, is enthused, and ferocious fighting is in this young warrior's blood.
Yeah, I think I have youth on my side, but not disrespecting him. I respect all my opponents, and I'm sure that he's tough because he has the credentials too. But at the same time, I don't plan on going out there and by any means laying down for him. When it's all said and done, win, lose, or draw, he'll know that he's been in the fight.
Dwayne Kaysen, the nephew of Leon and Michael Spinks. First UFC, but as a freestyle wrestler, a mark of 277-8 with 230 pins. And you see there, a junior Olympic champion in freestyle wrestling.
Certainly has an impressive junior record. A lot of sticks there, so you have to feel as though he has a wrestler's base. Bruce, he also was an amateur boxer, so he's got some boxing skills with him, and certainly with being the nephew of Leon and Michael Spinks, I'm sure they must have had some input into his boxing skills.
Pretty good football player too. He played at Clemson and was a part of the team that went to the Gator Bowl in '95, although they did lose to Syracuse 41-0 in that ball game.
Excellent wrestler, powerful, a 525-pound bench and an 865-pound squat, and a good boxer. He has well-rounded tools, but he's a newcomer to the UFC.
Mississippi State Trooper Houston Doore has the hometown advantage and strategy on his side.
Game plan is we think he's gonna come at me real hard and quick because he's got a little wrestling background. What I want to do at first is go ahead and pound on him a little bit. But usually you don't last long on that because it happens so fast on the ground. But I want to get the first licks in. If you go to the ground, that's my game. I like the ground too. So I have some surprises for me.
Houston Doore, the WKKC Super Heavyweight Champion. A kickboxer who's got an impressive record of 18-1 with all 18 wins coming by KO. Hometown boy, a Mississippi highway patrolman, and an investigative detective. He's an instructor who teaches tactical work for patrol cars. Let's see what he can do in the octagon.
Well, he certainly had a kickboxing background. He's 1-1 in no holds barred. His loss to Anthony Mad Dog Macias. So he has been in this kind of situation before where Dwayne Kaysen has not. But Kaysen has worked out with Steve Grant. We saw him in the last UFC. And Houston Doore's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor is Lauren Phillips, so he is familiar with the ground. Breakdown, he's a kickboxer by heart. 23-2, excuse me, an 18-1 record in that. Limited ground skills, but I believe he knows what he's doing down there. No, he's knowledgeable on some submissions. But as a kickboxer, look for him to strike.
He is from Diamond Head, Mississippi, just down the road a bit. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for this second alternate bout of the evening. Pleased to be bringing it to you live on pay-per-view. Houston Doore is 39, and that is a big question mark. Kaysen is 20. 15 pounds on Kaysen's side. Does Houston Doore have the discipline, and is he in the kind of shape to stay with the youngster Dwayne Kaysen? For more on the introduction, let's go up to Bruce Buffer.
Our second alternate bout begins with a fighter standing to my left. He comes to us from Des Moines, Iowa, and is now fighting out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He's a junior Olympic wrestling champion and a North Carolina state champion. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs in at 215 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dwayne Carson. And his opponent standing to my right, he is the WKKC Super Heavyweight Kickboxing Champion with a record of 23-2 and 17 by knockout. This fighter is from Diamond Head, Mississippi. He stands 6 feet 1 inch tall and weighs in at 200 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Houston Doore.
Joe Hamilton, again the alternate ref, black belt in Taekwondo, currently a full-time firefighter and paramedic in Provo, Utah.
Set, here we go, get set, get busy.
Here we go, Houston Doore against Dwayne Kaysen.
See if Houston can go ahead and launch some strikes here and get to Kaysen early, because Kaysen's going to take him down as he just did.
Great quickness by Kaysen.
And technically there he was kicking the kidneys of Kaysen, which is illegal. No punching on the ground, but Kaysen quickly.
Oh, he's got fire in those gloves.
He's throwing strikes, and they're fast strikes.
He's got very quick right hand.
He's also got that left arm in there. He needs to be careful. If Houston Doore's right leg comes over the top, and he reaches with a potential arm bar.
Crowd is chanting for Houston, but he's in trouble right now. Kaysen has him up against the chain link fence, and that hurts. Trying to fight back. Kaysen in a fully flexed position. But he's got to continue to work if he doesn't want a stalemate.
He's in a close guard. This is more of a defensive position, but he's overripped both arms now. Swing move over both arms. He could potentially row Kaysen, perhaps get a reversal, come out on top.
Kaysen is trying to get that right arm free so he can land some punches. But I'll tell you, Doerr's got a good handle on him right now.
And headbutting is now illegal, and this is where we used to see a lot of headbutting when the arms were both tied up. Who was ever in best position would take advantage of it, but here, no headbutting allowed.
Now he works that left arm free, trying to get the right arm back. But Doerr quickly working from the ground and doing the best he can to keep his opponent tied up.
You can see that Kaysen is searching for something to do to get out of the guard.
Kaysen trying to land that right hand, but can't get it free.
Stay away from the eyes.
Kaysen, a North Carolina State wrestling champion, and he's got plenty of experience on the mat. Now he chops away at the midsection.
Small punches, not going to do a lot of damage, and it seems as though Houston realizes he doesn't have to worry about those kinds of punches. They may have a small effect on him, but position is everything, and he's not going to give up the guard.
But Jeff, if you land those punches all night long, they'll start to accumulate.
Yes, they will. I mean, they're adding points. He's being aggressive. They're good, but they're not the big blows that are going to end the fight.
Almost 3 minutes in. It's been Houston Doerr with that one quick move, controlling this fight. Rather, Dwayne Kaysen controlling the fight with Doerr on his back.
And Kaysen, the wrestler, must not get frustrated. That has been the biggest problem with wrestlers in the UFC, and that is their frustration in the guard, and then they get overly aggressive, and then they get themselves into trouble because they reach with their arms, and then they get submitted.
Looked like Kaysen might have been looking for some kind of ankle bar or knee bar down there for a moment.
It almost looked like he was going to do a professional wrestling move, the crab, and step over the legs and sit back on him, Doerr's back and arch, but oh, there's a couple good blows.
Kaysen, a couple miss, a couple score.
Oh, those are some tough shots.
Look out, that's over. It's over. Dwayne Kaysen knocks Houston out the door. And the referee stops the contest. That was enough punishment for Houston Doerr. Wow, when he finally got those arms free, Kaysen showed us what he had, and he had plenty.
And also you could tell when he was landing those big blows, it was no longer a closed guard, but an open one, which allowed him to move up, raise his backside, be able to get good leverage punching down. Some concern over Houston. He was a little bit wobbly going back to his corner. They're going to sit him down, check him over right there. And it's evident that Kaysen has some fast hands. He was able to go ahead and throw multiple blows in a hurry. And looking at him physique-wise, he's very powerful. They had some good sting to him.
And right now, some concern for Houston Doerr, who is being looked at by Dr. Richard Istrico. Assisted tonight by Dr. Todd Coulter and Dr. Lance Barnes, two local physicians from Mississippi. As always, the UFC using a triage room on the ground to check each fighter before he advances in competition.
It started out early, a kick, and as soon as he went for the kick, Kaysen went for the legs. Good double leg. Nice penetration, step and power, driving him down, but he landed in the guard.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Bruce Buffer standing by.
Ladies and gentlemen, the referee has stopped the fight at 3 minutes and 43 seconds with the winner, Dwayne Kaysen! Let's have a big hand for Houston Doerr.
3:42, Dwayne Kaysen. Referee stops contest. There's the mutual respect of the UFC with the fighters sharing some last-minute thoughts following the bout. And again, Dwayne Kaysen wins an alternate bout, and that means that he has the chance later of moving into the main draw should anyone be unable to continue in the Collision Course heavyweight tournament.
And certainly we're looking at someone here who probably could get under 200 pounds and be a middleweight as well. He certainly has great skill, great striker, tremendous takedown artist. He looks as though if he keeps working hard, he could be a great wrestler as well. You know, he was in the Gator Bowl in '95 for Clemson.
That's right, and he's a weightlifter. In high school, he once squatted 865 and benched 525, weighing only 185 pounds. What does that mean?
He claims to have done all that, and to me, that is phenomenal. I mean, that's an awful lot of weight.
Trained and managed by Jim West, is just a class guy in the martial arts game.
Certainly is, and he's well respected, and he's got a great protege there, someone we can look forward to seeing.
So we're through the alternate bouts, but we still have much more to come tonight. It's a big evening. We've got a double main event. Maurice Smith and Tank Abbott is the UFC Heavyweight Championship fight, with Smith defending. Tank replacing Dan Severn. And then in the title elimination bout, two guys who have already won tournaments in UFC style competition. The undefeated phenom, Vitor Belfort, and he takes on Randy Couture, who is a well-known American wrestler, really a genius as far as wrestling is concerned in the United States. Now, I talked earlier about Randy Couture, one of the great American wrestlers who's preparing for tonight's battle. Legendary wrestler Randy Couture walks into the octagon tonight to take on the Rio de Janeiro juggernaut Vitor Belfort. Couture made his octagon debut in UFC 13. He handily defeated wrestler Tony Halama with a submission. The 34-year-old grappler was the outstanding wrestler in the United States at the 1997 Greco-Roman Championships. Couture defeated Stephen Graham in his second bout of UFC 13 to win the heavyweight tournament title. Couture is a phenomenal athlete who uses wrestling as a base on which to build the skills needed to dominate this event.
As a wrestler, we have to keep an open mind. We have a lot of great mat skills and mat sense and conditioning and things, but technically we have to keep an open mind and try and learn as many of these positions and finishes and passing the guard and all those things as we can. And I'm still learning those things. Each time I roll with somebody, I learn something new, and that's what's fun. That's what makes it interesting.
Tonight, this decorated wrestler takes on his toughest challenge in the rocket-fisted Vitor Belfort. One thing's for sure, if things go Couture's way, the mystery of Belfort's touted groundwork will be revealed.
Just have to time his approach. Use motion. He's going to have obviously stay with me if I move. Same thing in wrestling. And just time his approach. If he's close enough to throw blows and hit me, then he's close enough to be taken down.
So we look forward to that action coming up later. The UFC title elimination bout between Randy Couture, UFC 13 heavyweight tournament winner, and Vitor Belfort, who won UFC 12 in the heavyweight tournament division. Here's the way the heavyweight tournament unfolds tonight. You've got to win 2 bouts. To win the tournament, it puts you in position for a title shot perhaps down the line. We've got Greg Stott and Mark Kerr and Dave Benito and Carlos Habeto going toe-to-toe. Greg Stott, RIP hand-to-hand is his style, and he takes on Mark Kerr, a guy who's been very successful in the UFC and has one appearance, 2-0, and another tournament winner. Ranger Stott brings an airborne Ranger's courage and a unique style into the octagon tonight.
My name's Greg Ranger Stott. I'm a former airborne ranger and combat veteran. Currently, I'm a hand-to-hand instructor and a founder of my own style, which we call RIP. RIP stands for Ranger International Performance, and is the most expeditious and effective form of hand-to-hand combat in the world. That's why the RIP team's here at UFC 15 to prove why RIP rules and all others rest in peace.
All right, let him rip.
He draws heavily from Wing Chun, Kung Fu, and also Sifu to base his style of RIP.
He's managed by the UFC legend, Charlie Angelo.
Certainly is, and he's also a veteran of Granada. This man has seen action both in the battlefield and in the battle of one-on-one NHB combat.
And I've also run into him on the Tough Man circuit. He won the North Carolina Tough Man Championship. 30-0 in U.S. Army's hand-to-hand bear pit fights. You know those guys are for real.
He'll break down a knocked-out striker. None of his fights, he's 7-0 bare-fisted, have gone more than 90 seconds. Extremely aggressive, that fits the persona. Claims to be excellent at submissions, but he's too busy knocking out people, so I don't think he spends a lot of time on the ground, and he's a former Ranger.
The smashing machine, Mark Kerr, comes to UFC 15 with the UFC 14 tournament title. He says he has experience and a good teacher.
Well, I think a little better preparation. I think that just watching the whole event, watching how things unfolded, I realized that you know, strength plays a factor, skill plays a factor, but the bottom line to all of that is conditioning. So, you know, I took a lot more time preparing cardiovascular-wise and trying to really get a good game plan like that coming into this, knowing that you know, the competitors that are in the tournament are going to be, you know, pretty fit, and that's going to be my advantage, I think.
Máquina de Bater, the smashing machine. The Brazilian fighting magazines nicknamed him that, and we saw that in the last UFC. He was the NCAA Division I champion in wrestling at Syracuse University, beating Randy Couture of Oklahoma State 12-4.
That was a great bout as well. He also upset the defending national champion, Rex Lohman, in the semifinals. Lohman from Ohio State, where Coleman went to school. So these guys have known each other a long time. Trains at the Hammer House with Mark Coleman.
He looks pretty ripped to me.
Yes, he does. World-class wrestler, no doubt about it. He is a physical specimen, and that's kind of his nickname in the U.S. martial arts world, is the specimen. However, the Brazilians call him a smashing machine because of his Vale Tudo appearance, his inaugural appearance, where he beat Fabio Gugel in a 30-minute, very exciting bout.
Well, anytime you earn nicknames such as that, Jeff, I think it's well deserved. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape between the Ranger and the smashing machine. Stott, 6 years older. Kerr has the weight advantage and the height advantage. He's 31 pounds bigger than the Ranger, Greg Stott, out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Bruce Buffer with the formal particulars.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now about to begin our heavyweight elimination tournament. Beginning with the fighter standing to my left. He hails from Raleigh, North Carolina. He is a former airborne Ranger and an expert in RIP hand-to-hand combat. He holds a record of 30-0 in the United States Army full contact competitions. He is also the winner of the North Carolina Tough Man contest. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighs in at 222 pounds. Please welcome Greg Ranger Stott. And to my right, he's a freestyle wrestling champion and a World Cup champion. He is the winner of UFC 14's heavyweight tournament. He's 28 years old, stands 6 feet 1 inch tall, and weighs in at 253 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark the Smashing Machine Kerr. And when the action begins, our referee is Big John McCarthy.
Bruce, this should be a great fight. Stott's going to come right across the ring at Kerr. His style of fighting is let's get it on and punch. Kerr, a little more seasoned in NHB, and he's been in the octagon before.
So here we go. Mark Kerr quickly going after his opponent. Greg the Ranger Stott. The Ranger goes down.
One knee. That was one knee.
That is over. It is over. It was a knee. McCarthy saw him go down hard.
quickly ended the bout. Oh, my.
You stay right there. Don't stay here. You stay right there. That's all right. You stay right there. You stay right there.
Wow.
Well, he made the mistake of ducking down when Kerr tried to go upper body wrestling with him, and Kerr just brought the knee up, dropped him, and you saw Kerr looked at Big John McCarthy before going after him anymore. He stopped right away. He knew he hit him well.
Wow.
1 second, we'll get you to the center and verify.
I was surprised. I thought Stott would come across and start to punch. Kerr came in, just a straight tie-up wrestling, and like a kickboxer, brought that knee up hard from the outside, caught him square.
Wow, what a delivery.
Did you see the legs go straight? He went right down. Kerr with a massive knee strike.
And Kerr backs off here. McCarthy comes running in, but Kerr does not throw any more blows anyway.
Oh, he knew it. You could tell. Kerr was looking at his head. He knew that Stott was basically out.
That was frightening. Kerr looks powerful. Stott is okay.
That could have been the fastest fight in UFC history. That was quick.
Bruce Buffer is standing by.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner at 19 seconds by knockout, Mark the Smashing Machine Kerr! Let's have a big hand for Greg Ranger Stott.
So Mark Kerr effectively, powerfully comes away with the W in 19 seconds, a KO. The ref stops the contest. The Smashing Machine well oiled and in good repair. Whoa. I used the word ferocious with Mark Coleman. I think you got to use it tonight here.
Well, they both kind of measured each other, and then all of a sudden it's Kerr who's going to come in, tie up with the head. And as he ties up with the head, you see Stott go ahead and put his head down. Once he put his head down, Kerr brought the knee up, caught him flush in the face, and Stott's legs went stiff. He fell like a tree. Here it is from another angle here. Kerr reaching, trying to tie up the head. Very normal in wrestling. Once he does that, right here, you see Stott put his head down. Once that head's down, Kerr is free to bring that knee up, and he delivered it in ferocious fashion.
Let's go to Joe Rogan.
I'm here with Mark Kerr, the champion, with the fastest victory in UFC history at 19 seconds. How you feeling?
I feel pretty good. It's I didn't really know what to expect going out there, but I feel good.
Well, again, the world-class wrestler, you're showing your diversity with striking. Incredible knee, beautiful fight. How are you feeling now going into the finals?
I feel good. I didn't really expend a lot of energy. The nerves are down now, and now it's just focusing on the winner between Barreto and Dave Beneteau. I'm just really fortunate to be here, and I have to thank a lot of people, and I feel good. I feel good tonight.
Well, congratulations. I got to say it showed a lot of sportsmanship that you didn't hit the guy after that. That was really excellent of you, true champion, and good luck in the finals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you guys.
Well, it wasn't the quickest in UFC history. Don Frye beat Thomas Ramirez in 10 seconds, and Gary Goodrich took care of Paul Herrera in 13 seconds. But this one was close, and it was one blow, Jeff, and it was fast and furious.
You can tell that Kerr's been doing his homework. He's cross-training. He's learning how to use his total body as a weapon, and what he did right there as a wrestler, he closed the distance, felt that Stott couldn't strike him, and when Stott put the head down, he opened himself up towards that perfect knee, and Kerr took full advantage. And that's a very big advantage because, as Kerr said in that interview, didn't waste a lot of energy. Now he can sit back and watch.
And the whole concept of reality combat fighting today is to cross-train, to work on different aspects of your game. Here is a wrestler who's showing us something else.
Without a doubt, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, when it started, was sort of a discipline against discipline, and what it has evolved into is well-rounded fighters take what works, discard what doesn't, use anything from any discipline.
And fighters learn from each other, hence they're training with each other as well. All right, we've got a double main event tonight, part of the focus this evening in Bay St. Louis, and Vitor Belfort and Randy Couture hook up in an elimination bout. Both are undefeated. And then later tonight, we finish off the evening with Maurice Smith against David Tank Abbott, who is subbing for Dan Severn, who is out with a wrist injury. Now we caught up to both Maurice Smith and Tank Abbott and got their thoughts heading into tonight's UFC Heavyweight Championship contest.
My heart's got me a long way, and I'm not going to go out and try to do anything but fight. And if we have to go the distance, my heart will be there.
I respect Tank as a fighter for a short time. He is a very tough fighter. There's no question. Just his main problem has been only long term. In that short span, he is very dangerous, and that's something that I respect from him. Now I foresee him either one, coming right at me, taking me to the ground if he can, or two, if he stands up with me, it would be not quite as smart, because I know I'm a better stand-up fighter than he is. But that's not to say that he can't knock you out. Tank is very tough, and people might make fun of him or whatever, but you gotta respect his power and his desire to fight.
Maurice Smith, who fought a brilliant tactical battle, defeating Mark Coleman for the championship.
Without a doubt. Everyone pegged Coleman as the ultimate fighting champion for quite a while, and coming out of Extreme, no one really had seen Maurice Smith in UFC competition, and they all didn't feel he could go up against Coleman, but he is the man. Our next fight here.
Dave Beneteau against Carlos Barreto. Beneteau ready to go back in action. Barreto looking forward to the opportunity to do here as well.
Sou profissional, eu tenho que treinar tudo. O meu treinador, o Carson Grace, faz com que nós treinamos tudo. Quedas, finalizações, boxing, kickboxing, tudo. Porque sempre temos que ser lutadores completos. Não há a melhor parte. O lutador profissional não pode ter a melhor parte. Ele tem que ir lá e desenvolver o trabalho dele.
Here he comes, Carlos Barreto, out of Rio de Janeiro. First UFC, and he follows a long line of Brazilian stars. 10 years in Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
His nickname is Carlone for Big Carlos. He's 6'4", 235 pounds, and that 6'4" means he's got some long legs. He's got a good guard, and everyone knows about his triangle choke. He was losing to Bobish, who we saw here in UFC competition. Got hit early, was almost out on his feet, recovered while Bobish was in his guard, and then eventually submitted the wrestler. So you know he can recover, and you know he is a threat with submissions.
He won the Universal Vale Tudo Championship in the year past.
Excellent ground skills, masterful submissions, may not be the best takedown artist, may want to pull someone into that guard, and certainly from Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, one of the legends from the Gracie family. You know he knows his stuff on the ground.
Octagon veteran Dave Beneteau says he has the experience to beat the boy from Brazil.
Well, he's Brazilian, and of course he's jiu-jitsu, and from a stand-up aspect, he's a decent kicker. Not a bad puncher. He's good at the ground game. Surprise, surprise. And he's well conditioned. And he's got a good head for the game. So all around, I think he's like a triple threat. But, I'm up for the game.
Good to welcome back Dave Beneteau. 2-3 in the UFC. His last appearance was Ultimate 95. He was injured in UFC number 9 and did not fight. He has lost to Dan Severn and Oleg Tiktarov, a runner-up in UFC 5. He's back up to 260 pounds. We last saw him down about 245 for the Ultimate. He feels more comfortable here. Four-time Canadian Amateur Wrestling Association champion. 17 national titles.
Beneteau, a superb puncher. That's his strength. He can take down, and as we've seen, all of his losses have been to submission. So he needs to be careful, and he says he's worked on his ground skills. Runner-up in UFC 5.
And here's a look at the tail of the tape for this battle between Barreto and Beneteau. One big Carlos, Beneteau known as Dangerous Dave. Wrestling and jiu-jitsu, 30 and 29. Barreto 2 inches taller. Beneteau's got a 7-pound advantage. This could be a very interesting fight. It could be quick. Let's go to Bruce Buffer.
Our next heavyweight elimination fight begins with the fighter standing to my left. This 1996 World Jiu-Jitsu champion is making his octagon debut. He is a member of the Carlson Gracie team and hails from Rio de Janeiro. Standing 6 feet, 5 inches tall and weighing in at 253 pounds, please welcome Carlos Barreto. And to my right, he's a veteran of the UFC and winner of the 1997 International Wrestling Tournament. He is also a member of the Canadian Olympic Judo team. He comes to us from Ontario, Canada, standing 6 feet, 2 inches tall, and weighing in at 260 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Beneteau.
Big John McCarthy, third man of the octagon, his 16th UFC. He's done 100+ no-rules fights. Tactical instructor at the Los Angeles Police Academy.
Are you ready? Let's get it on! Look for Beneteau to try to land some good punches. His wrestling ability should be able to keep Barreto from taking him down.
A quick clinch, a knee by Barreto. Barreto pushing Beneteau up against the octagon fence.
Good job, good job.
Barreto looking for a trip.
Oh, that was a headbutt. That's a foul. That should have been a foul. And there you heard it.
3 fouls and you're out. You're disqualified. Now Beneteau trying to work in there for a choke.
Beneteau needs to be careful. If he puts that head down, he could wind up eating a knee as well. And it's interesting, it's Barreto spending a lot of energy trying to take Beneteau down. His game is on the ground.
A little over a minute in. Up against the octagon fence. Beneteau trying to use his strength as Barreto lands a knee and Beneteau answers.
Barreto's hanging on to the fence. That's why Beneteau is unable to move. He's pinned in there. He's in decent position, but Barreto is looking hard to try to rip the legs out from under the Canadian and take him to the ground.
John McCarthy separating the fighters for a lack of action.
The fence cannot be used to stall, and if Barreto isn't going to improve position, it's called stalling. Big John McCarthy will break them from the hold on the fence and start over. 1 foul against Barreto for a headbutt. If he gets his 3rd foul, he is disqualified.
Down goes Beneteau. Quick move by Barreto. Control.
Barreto took his back. Almost seen there. Beneto's giving him his back. Look for the rear naked choke now. And it seems as though Beneteau doesn't know what to do here.
Over 2 minutes in and up, nail to the back of the head.
And now Beneteau able to use the fence to his advantage and gets away.
Oh, Beneteau came firing, and now he wants his opponent to come get him. And this place is rocking. There is magic at this casino tonight.
Beneteau ate a couple punches there. He did get hit, but he seems rejuvenated getting back to his feet.
Those punches to the back of the head, I think, got him sparked up.
will make the move here.
Both of them measuring. Beneteau bull rushes him. No punches thrown.
Beneteau pushed up against the octagon fence.
Conditioning now will become a factor.
Beneteau weathered one storm. A right hand landed by Barreto. Barreto grabbing the right leg of Beneteau around the groin area.
He's reaching behind. He's trying to elevate that leg, and then if he can, he's going to drop down, pull the other one out. Now he's taking him to his guard.
Beneteau trying to land some punches.
He doesn't want to keep those arms straight down into the chest of Barreto. Oh, couple of good shots.
Right hand by Beneteau. Back to their feet.
And that has been the knock against Carlos Barreto, is his punching ability, and does he have a good enough chin? He weathered that storm of Beneteau.
4 minutes in.
What a great fight thus far. It's gone back and forth.
And both guys look a little weather beaten right now. On their feet.
Superb fight here.
Crowd on their feet as well. Canada against Brazil. Truly an international fight.
It's interesting. Beneteau goes back and forth from a lead left to a southpaw stance in his boxing.
A big right that almost got Beneteau rocked, but it didn't land good enough. Now Beneteau grabs the double leg.
That's a takedown by Beneteau, but what can he do here? This is good. This is without doubt Barreto's position. Carlo liking the guard. And watch for him now to go up and try for arm bars or triangle chokes. And that kick just missed. That kick just missed Beneteau's head.
And Jeff, Beneteau wanted no part of that game on the mat.
He's a smart guy. Why play the other man's fight? This is what Barreto does.
Come on, let's go. Come on. Doing good.
Barreto certainly is dangerous in there.
Misses with a right hand.
All right, Beneteau realizing he is not as articulate in the guard to be able to pass it and be effectively striking. He felt that he was vulnerable there perhaps to Carlos' submissions and takes it up where he's been having success, and that's on the feet with his punching game.
12 minutes with 1 3-minute overtime if necessary in the semifinals. The winner takes on Mark Kerr. And being out there this long is not going to help either guy.
Oh, good uppercut.
The right hand.
When Beneteau bends down on his knees, that's it. And now Barreto is doing that. Oh!
He just missed with a kick.
Those long, long legs.
You've heard of long reaches in boxing. That was a long reach from the foot.
Barreto missed with a kick while he was on his back as Beneteau stood up off the guard.
And Beneteau has trained some with Emanuel Stewart, the legendary Kronk gym man who's worked with 23 world champions.
Did some work with Pedro Sauer to try to help his ground attack.
Beneteau grabs the ankle and drops his opponent, Barreto.
Now this is where he wants to stay. If he's going to get caught in the guard, get up high where Barreto can't use those legs to go ahead and submit him. And you see how Barreto now is moving the legs up. He wants to get it up near the head where he can triangle or flip one of the legs over the top and go armbar.
Oh, Beneteau got nailed by a foot.
As you back out, you better prepare for that.
And those feet are quick. Beneteau trying to land that right hand. He's got a good one. Tremendous effort by both fighters. Carlos Barreto, dangerous Dave Beneteau. A little over 4 minutes left in the regulation.
And up here, Dave's all right. He's away from the legs. It's when he gets down low, or Carlos goes up on his shoulders, rocking backwards and brings his legs up towards Beneto's head. That's when the trouble starts. That's when Carlo becomes dangerous.
8 minutes in. On his back is Barreto.
And at this point, Beneteau can think about staying in here and staying up high and not being too much more aggressive. It's a very, very close fight. Somebody's bleeding. There's blood on Barreto's chest. Someone's bleeding.
I think it's coming from Beneteau, or it might be coming off the nostril of Barreto onto Beneteau, back onto his chest.
There's that leg again, and almost past the guard. Nearly got to a side mount.
Beneteau still working. McCarthy saying, okay, you guys are looking good. As long as I see action, I won't restand you.
Those are little punches thrown by Barreto, no damage, but they're irritating there. Now Beneto's doing the same. He needs to score some of those little punches to keep even with Barreto. But without a doubt, he is in better position when he's up high rather than moving down low where the legs of Barreto move up.
9 minutes in.
Keep it working, gentlemen. Come on.
Barreto, a big-time wrestler.
And again, Barreto moving him down.
Beneteau went to 4 world championships from 84 to 87. Barreto recently won the Iron Fist Tournament Heavyweight Championship, beating Daniel Bovich, Kevin Randleman, and Geza Kalman consecutively.
Here it comes. Nearly got the armbar. Slipped the leg over the top, nearly got the armbar, and Beneteau wants nothing to do with those legs.
Well, those feet are fast and dangerous.
And it appears as though Barreto has the edge in conditioning. Beneteau sweating hard. Seemed to want to break to collect himself, and Barreto's giving him no space.
I agree with you. Barreto is looking stronger right now.
A foot stomp.
And we haven't seen that for a while. Since the days of Marco Ruas.
John McCarthy, unless Barreto improves position, it's going to be called stalling, and there he calls it. And you can see Beneto's hands are on his knees. He is fatigued. Barreto also fatigued, but he seems to be in a little bit better shape.
Turn around. Are you ready to go? Turn around.
Blood in the nostrils of both fighters.
You ready? Let's get it on. Come on.
Two tired warriors. A great fight. It's gone back and forth. Beneto's got takedowns and some good punches. Barreto, a few kicks, his own few punches.
Does Barreto have the energy to raise that leg one more time? Beneteau snuck a straight right hand in there and got out of trouble.
Another good double leg takedown by Beneteau. He is in the guard once again.
Almost 11 minutes in. There will be a 3-minute overtime if needed if we reach the 12-minute mark.
Okay, let's keep working.
There have been ebbs and flows in this fight. And Beneteau pretty much on the top for much of the bout.
He has 3 big double leg takedowns now. He's got his own punches. Barreto landed a couple kicks, though, and he has also landed some punches. So this is going to be awful tough to call. It's a interpretation of the judges what's winning on the ground. Takedowns or staying in the guard. That's a difficult call. Striking is about even. Aggressiveness is about even. And right now Beneteau needs to flurry some, but if there's going to go into the overtime, again, he wants to pace himself. He doesn't want to burn out. Barreto seems confident to stay here. Again, he's doing those little punches to irritate Beneteau and make him move.
Final seconds of regulation. Heavyweight tournament, collision course, UFC 15, Casino Magic, Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. And you'll hear the horn at any moment, and this place will explode.
Stop it right there.
We go to overtime, 3 minutes.
A tremendous 12-minute regulation. And now who's got the strength? You know, Beneteau looks better now. He looks like he got his second win.
Certainly does. He needs to compose himself. And when you get in that top position, you can take the time to rest, even if you're in the guard. Stay up high where you can't be hit, can't be submitted.
Jeff, you really want to win this bout because either guy is in trouble going in against Mark Kerr, having fought this long against the Smashing Machine. So you might as well just go out there right now, do whatever you can, give it your best shot, and win this bout, because that's what's the important part.
That's correct. There's 3 minutes left. The most important thing is to win this fight, not worry about Mark Kerr. Worry about this fight. But Kerr does have the advantage against the winner.
Now you heard that McCarthy said one more holding of the fence by Barreto, and he's disqualified.
Stand up position, all right? Go back to your corner.
So Barreto cannot grab the fence for more than a couple seconds.
Tell him not to hold the fence in the stand-up. In the stand-up. No stand-up. In the stand-up, all right? No stand-up.
I think he talked loud enough in any language for him to understand that.
That is correct. And they know what the word fence is if they've been in the octagon.
3-minute overtime. Carlos Barreto in the shorts. Dave Beneteau in the long black trucks.
Beneteau doing a good job in this fight to avoid the submissions of Carlos Barreto.
Beneteau faking a kick. Barreto goes down low with a kick.
Look as though Beneteau was going to unload a knee there.
And he got a couple short uppercuts in with that right hand.
There you go, baby. Good job. Good work.
Both of these athletes performing very well under tough circumstances and fatigue.
There you go, hand. There you go. Good job. Good job.
Who's got that one burst of energy left to go for a takedown? Is it Beneteau with a double leg, or is it Barreto with a big kick?
Yeah.
It might come down to whoever has the last fury, the last flurry, the last thing that the judges see might decide this fight.
You're right.
There you go. Come on.
2 minutes to go in overtime.
Let's go.
You can hear McCarthy encouraging the fighters.
Take it out.
And this is unusual now. Barreto is in a guard. Beneteau might be here for the rest of the fight. And this is more the Brazilians' game.
Barreto trying to unleash some punches.
Good job. Good job.
You can hear McCarthy in complete control of this bout. A minute 20 in overtime.
A little bit of a swim move here to clear Beneteau's arm over Barreto's head. But that's exactly what Beneteau wants to do, is to keep Barreto close so that he can't raise up and throw punches.
Coming up on 1 minute in overtime. Was that last takedown by Barreto enough to sway the judges?
Now Beneteau's pushed up against the fence, so if he wishes to buck his hips and arch to keep Barreto from hitting him, it could be a little bit difficult because the fence is keeping him from moving.
I don't think Barreto wants to make a mistake here. Right hand by Barreto, short, chopping to the head. I don't think Barreto wants to make a mistake.
No, it looks that way, but you got to give credit to Beneteau. He is keeping Barreto from moving up and trying to pass the guard, and he's certainly blocking any errant strikes, particularly heavy strikes, that Barreto can launch.
Coming up on 15 seconds in this fight.
Technically illegal. That could be a foul, and it is. That was kicking the kidney. That's illegal.
Final second to the bout, and this one looks like it will go to the judges.
And that's going to make this fight even tighter. Each fighter now has one foul apiece. Boy, this is the closest fight I think I've seen here in the UFC.
And Jeff, up top, I said it could go to the distance. It could go quickly. We saw some possible punches and kicks that could have ended it swiftly. Instead, it went the distance.
It certainly did. You called it correctly, Bruce. And both fighters a tremendous job. Each of them sticking to the talents that have made them successful. And each of them knowing enough defense to keep the other strengths from coming to bear.
Overtime takedown. Let's see the last one.
Well, Beneteau's up against the fence. Carlos's head's down. He's looking to pick this leg here. What he's going to do is try to rip it out this way, bring Beneteau's body down. And here comes the rip. down, and Beneteau, realizing he's going to get caught down, immediately goes into the guard. Smart move, good takedown. Early in the fight up against the fence, being pulled down into the guard. That's actually a half guard right there. Beneteau looking to strike, and he gets on corked here. He gets a few down into Barreto's head. Right here. Using the knee nice to isolate the head as well. Good striking by Beneteau. Just repeated punches there. That's probably the best punching sequence of the entire fight. But boy, was this a close one to call. A couple kicks by Barreto got in. Each had one foul. Beneteau picked up that foul very, very late, and that might be the difference if it does go Barreto's way.
All right, Bruce Buffer with the decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, the judges have reached a unanimous decision for the winner, Dave Beneteau!
What a sweet victory for Dave Beneteau, who waited so patiently for a return to the octagon. A multitude of injuries kept him out of action, and now he comes back and he wins a tremendous battle against Carlos Barreto, and I'm surprised it was unanimous. Beneteau will meet Mark Kerr for the title.
And just before the overtime, Beneteau launched his own takedown. He's sizing him up. He's going to be bending at the knees. And what he's going to be looking for is to come down, dropping his hips, come down to attack both legs. And what he's waiting for is some movement up here by Barreto before he starts it. Barreto closes the distance, throwing a punch. Beneteau in and under, rotates around, finishes a beautiful double leg. Classic wrestling move.
And there's the reaction. Beneteau, was sweet for him. He's overcome a couple of injuries, a meniscus tear in his right knee. He had surgery in February. He also had the fractured right hand back in '96 when he couldn't compete in the UFC number 9 in Detroit. He was scheduled to fight, had to pull out. And here he is back, evening up his record in the octagon. Joe Rogan taking away with Dave Beneteau.
I'm here with the winner, Dave Beneteau. Dave, congratulations. Congratulations on your return to the octagon. Give us some of your thoughts on the fight and your return after a long period of absence.
Well, I knew Carlos was a tough opponent, and I've had a year and a half absence from the octagon, and spent a lot of time training jiu-jitsu and learning the game, and had a couple bad pair of losses to Oleg, and I think I was coming into this really underrated, and I think Carlos may have taken me kind of lightly, but I've been practicing my game. I've been out with injuries. I've been really hungry. I trained off for the last 5 weeks, and you know, I knew halfway through the fight that I could feel the momentum about even, and I just figured if I kept pressuring it and keeping him in his guard and making him defensive, that I could come out on top. So
that's what you think the difference is?
Yeah, and even near the end, in the overtime, when he put me in the guard, he was in my guard. Actually, you know, I actually felt comfortable there, and I felt as though I could control him. So, you know, the jiu-jitsu is a great game, but the myth is broken, and North America's really catching on quick. So, you know, I paid my dues in that.
Great. Now, what are your thoughts going into the finals now, knowing that Mark Kerr had a quick fight and you had a long, grueling one?
Well, that's something I'm going to decide in the interim, and I'm going to make an executive decision and see what the heck's going on. And I gotta, you know, I concentrated so much in this fight alone. I wasn't really thinking too much about what came after, and so I needed a minute to collect my thoughts and catch my breath, and we're going to see what's going on.
All right. Well, good luck and congratulations. Great win.
Thank you very much.
Back to you guys.
So a tremendous performance by Dave Beneteau, but now he has the unenviable task of taking on Mark Kerr, who won in less than 25 seconds and looked like a powerhouse. But Beneteau's return to the octagon has to be considered a success off that smashing victory, a unanimous decision here in Mississippi. Coming up, we've still got a lot of great fights ahead, and we've got the double main event, the super fight. Maurice Smith, the champion, defending the UFC heavyweight title against David Tank Abbott. And in the show stealer, the elimination bout, Vitor Belfort undefeated in the octagon. Randy Couture undefeated in the octagon. Belfort's never been on the ground. Couture's never really been on his feet for the end of a fight, and we'll see what will give. And there's a look at Vitor Belfort in his locker room, a man who is tremendously focused, tremendously talented. He has done everything that's been asked of him thus far in the octagon. Some people say he could be a professional boxer. He's a UFC powerhouse, and he has one dream: winning the UFC heavyweight title in a sport where chance is always a factor. The Brazilian force of nature makes his own luck through hard work and perseverance. 20-year-old phenom Vitor Belfort has rocketed to prominence in the UFC. The juggernaut from Rio used dazzling hand speed and power to take out Tank Abbott in 53 seconds. Belfort upheld Brazil's stature as the land of fighters, and tonight he expects to be ready for the unexpected. He knows that this fight with Couture may not be as fast as the rest, but it doesn't concern him.
I never expect to be fast, I just expect to do what I need to do to get rid of my opponent, and it just happened what I need to happen, It's going quick because I did what I need to do quick as possible, and I hope to be quick and not the same, but I don't want to get hurt and I don't want to hurt my opponent, I just want to win.
Skeptics question his ground skills. We've never seen Belfort grapple. So far, he hasn't had to. That may change in the title elimination bout with Couture. Belfort says he's prepared for anything. One of the most disciplined and talented fighters, the one constant for Vitor Belfort is the continuing struggle to be the best.
Everything you need to work, you have talent, but if you don't work, you're not gonna make the thing grow, And all the time I work my speed, my strength, my technique, my power, everything you need to practice. If you don't practice, you don't gonna make better. That's what I'm trying to do.
Can Belfort continue his string of stunning success? Will he falter when faced with a world-class wrestler? In just a few minutes, the questions get answered at the UFC. Vitor Belfort, and he has really learned the language quickly, Jeff. I'm impressed.
Certainly has, and he's learned NHB and boxing awful quick here as well. A Carlson Gracie jiu-jitsu protege, and we have never seen him on the ground. All we have is his reputation from Brazil, and many people feeling him and Rickson Gracie are the two best at it. But we've seen those punches, those clips that you just saw, the hand speed and the power.
So it's the UFC heavyweight title elimination bout. Randy Couture, a legendary wrestler, thinks he has the goods to take Belfort out.
Well, I don't think anybody's challenged him on the mat yet, and obviously he's proven himself on his feet. He's got quick hands and he's a good puncher, but nobody's really challenged him and tried to take him down. And obviously I'm a wrestler, so that's going to be the first and foremost thing in my mind, is to take him to the mat, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Here comes Randy Couture, a three-time national Greco-Roman wrestling champion in his second UFC. He won UFC 13, the heavyweight tournament winner. He's 2-0 in the octagon, a three-time All-America at Oklahoma State.
He is also a three-time USA Wrestling National Champion in Greco-Roman, and this year he finished 9th in the World Championships just a month ago. Brilliant wrestler. Great takedowns, and that's what he wants to do against Belfort, and put him on the ground. Wants to control him and strike while down there on the ground.
His opponent, Vitor Belfort, the Rio de Janeiro prodigy, who says he comes to this bout as a physical specimen with a keen mental focus.
Very important. Like the physical, you need to be strong everywhere, And when I get in the ring, I'm like a robot, I don't think, no emotions, just do what I need to do. I don't have feelings, I like my opponent, we're friends, but that day, we're just doing the job,
Well, he said it was just a job, and he looks all business coming out there. Interesting that he pulled this stall tactic. Normally the champion does that. And I'm sure Belfort has his eyes on the championship down the road.
So out of the motor home and into his own home, the Octagon.
Well, he has performed well. Lightning hands and that reputed Carlson Gracie jiu-jitsu background, that he's a terror on the ground, but we have not seen that. And Randy Couture basically said, I am going to show you what he can do on the ground, because as a wrestler, he wants to bring the fight down there.
And there's no way that Belfort can have more experience than Couture on the mat, because he's been doing it since Belfort was about 8 years old.
Well, that's wrestling, and wrestling is not a complete discipline for this style of fighting. Knockout puncher, without a doubt, tremendous hand speed and power. Accuracy as well. And Carlson Gracie, superb ground skills and submissions. Haven't seen him on the ground, so we don't know if he's weak there, but certainly on his feet, he can punch.
Still Jeff Couture, 23 years in wrestling, and Belfort, 20 years of age. Here's a look now at the tail of the tape for this battle. You've got the youngster in Belfort, the Phenom, 20 years of age. Couture is 34 years of age. As far as the weight, about the same. Height, about the same. The big difference, the lightning hands of Vitor Belfort and the experience of Randy Couture. Let's go up to Bruce Buffer for the formal introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, the collision course is set as we begin the first of our two main events of the evening. It's time for the UFC 15 Double Heavyweight Main Event. Beginning with the fighter standing to my left from Corvallis, Oregon. He's a 1997 National Greco-Roman champion. He was voted the most outstanding wrestler in the United States. He is also the winner of the UFC 14 Heavyweight Tournament. He's 34 years old, standing 6 feet, 1 inch tall, and weighing in at 226 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Randy And standing to my right, this 20-year-old UFC 12 heavyweight tournament champion hails from Rio de Janeiro. He is a disciple of Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He is also a former Jiu-Jitsu champion of Brazil with a record of 3-0 in the Octagon. He stands 6 feet and weighs in at 224 pounds. Please welcome Vitor
Belfort's boxing trainer is Al Stanky, who has worked with 4 Olympians. He's worked with the likes of De La Hoya and Paul Gonzalez and Hector Lopez, and he thinks that Belfort's hands are right up there with the best in the world.
Looking at these two physically, they are both about the same, and Couture's in great shape. Having come back from the World Championships, he trained hard for those, so he is physically ready, and we know Belfort looks physically ready as well. He's been pointing to this for a while.
UFC title elimination bout. Belfort landing a left hand. He's going southpaw now.
Yes, he is, and you notice Couture circling left. He's taking that classic boxing stance to take away the southpaw's advantage, trying to move left. Stay away from that power hand.
So in the southpaw style, that right hand is the jab hand, the left is the straight hand. Now they engage. Couture tried to pull him down and couldn't do it.
Well, he couldn't. He's trying basically a front headlock. There it is. Wrestling hold. Belfort had his head down. He tried to pull him down to the mat here. Belfort's got great power. Look at him pulling in that leg, Couture's left leg. He's got it now. It's called a single in wrestling.
He's got that leg up. Can he drop Couture?
Now he's trying to cut across the hip, switch it to a double. And the double doesn't mean you have to grab behind the knees. Basically, a double is encompassing both legs in the lock and controlling the hips.
Short uppercut with the left hand by Belfort, and they break.
Woo.
Couture better keep those hands high.
I got news. Couture is walking into Belfort. He's circling left and walking in. He's unafraid of this.
Belfort still fighting southpaw. Got a good straight left.
Yes, he does. Randy started to circle to the right. That's coming into the power. You get in trouble, you definitely want to go left and stay away from Belfort's left hand.
Does Couture really want to box with Belfort?
No, but he wants Belfort to throw something arcing so he can try to get under it like that. Without a doubt, Randy's going to be patient that way.
Short uppercuts again by Belfort.
Blocked by Randy Couture's elbow.
I think Couture right now is amazed by the strength of Belfort. He's tried to make moves. He has not been able to drop Belfort.
And without a doubt now, 2 minutes and 8 seconds, this is the longest Belfort fight we've had in the UFC.
Breaking new ground.
But I like Couture's composure here. He's unafraid of the boxing skills. And he's smart enough to realize Belfort's a left-hander and circle left.
Belfort has landed a bunch of short left hands, little uppercuts.
And Couture now is able to stay in closer to Belfort.
You got to watch that straight left by Belfort, though.
There's a double. There's a double leg. Once he went to an arcing punch, that gives Couture time to come down.
And now we get to see Vitor Belfort on the mat.
Side mount. Very good, Bruce. I'm still learning jiu-jitsu, a wrestler. I don't have a background in it, but I've been working at trying to learn all of the technical holds and such. That's a side mount. And Couture's content to kind of stay there. He's waiting to see what Belfort's going to try. And Belfort in the guard's doing what you're supposed to. Relax.
Yep. He's
path of least resistance.
He's showing a lot of that Royce Gracie approach. Being relaxed, staying very loose, picking your spot. Same movement around the ground.
Ideally, Randy would have liked to get that knee between Belfort's elbow and his body to wedge the arm up to the head. That renders it less useful. Looked like he tried to go for the mount there. Now he's got that knee wedging in there. That's good tactic. And he's switching up to a headlock.
Left hand by Randy Couture.
Nearly got rolled through, and he's going to lose the headlock.
And look at Couture scramble to keep position.
He needs to watch those feet. He needs to watch those feet if he chooses to move away. And now he's in a close guard.
Art Davey, the commissioner, has said that Belfort and Rickson Gracie are the best in the world on the ground. We shall see.
And much of this will have to do with Randy Couture. If he gets overly aggressive or straightens his arms out like he's doing here, raising his butt high, you'll see Belfort's legs move up towards Couture's head, and the options are armbar, triangle choke.
15 minutes, 2 3-minute overtimes in this heavyweight elimination bout.
Now, here, Couture's using energy. He's standing up, using leg energy to try to pry at Belfort. Belfort's just going to lay there. And to him, this is a win because he's getting Couture to spend energy. And that's the idea of jiu-jitsu, Royce Gracie in particular, wearing your opponent down.
And this is called the closed guard, now the open guard.
Now it's open. And what he'll try to do is bait Couture. He'll hope Couture gets frustrated, become overly aggressive, and bait him.
And because he's got such great quickness, Jeff, a reversal for him could be in an instant.
Well, I'm sure Couture does not want to be caught on the bottom mounted. Without a doubt. And I believe Belfort likes the side mount. He likes to put the knee in the stomach and punch from there.
Belfort, 4-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion.
Couture's a smart athlete. He lost Olympic berths in 88 and 92 to a gentleman by the name of Michael Ford, who was probably one of the toughest individuals for the first 2 minutes of any match. He could take anybody, and he always weathered those storms and gave Floyd tough bouts. This helped with this Belfort match. He was able to weather Belfort's initial charge, where this is the longest fight Belfort's ever had.
Again, a lot of composure shown here by Belfort. Couture landing to the head.
Now, once again, here standing up. Randy doesn't want to bring the feet too close to Belfort. Wants to keep them back. And this is pressured downward, but he's spending energy to do it.
Belfort's previous bouts, a minute 18. Trey Telligman, 52 seconds. Scott Ferrozzo, another quick one with David Tank Allen. All under a deuce. Over 6 minutes into this 15-minute regulation period. And the pattern remains the same. Vitor Belfort in the guard, closed and open.
Watch the legs, they're moving up towards the head. The arm's straight, he needs to be careful. When that arm gets straight, Randy Couture needs to be careful.
Couture tried to land a couple of knees, there's one, another.
They're hitting Belfort's arm. They were all hitting Belfort's arm. And this is Belfort's game now, he wants space to punch. Couture immediately closes it, smart tactic.
Right hand by Couture.
They both loaded up right there. Couture's got a little better. That was a good uppercut.
Landed by Vitor. Vitor got the left hand through.
And Couture was circling right now. He's took a couple steps to the left. There he's circling right again, which is into Belfort's left hand.
And he's landing often with that uppercut. Here's a combination. And then that loading up with the left hand, doubling up. And Belfort looks a little bit staggered.
And Belfort looks tired here.
Couture has landed a bunch of punches to the face of Vitor.
Oh, look at this.
Uppercut after uppercut, a plethora of punches.
Oh, and Belfort does look a little dazed. He's going down. He wants the guard now. He wants the guard, some knees to the head.
Couture continues to pummel away at Vitor Belfort. He did it standing up, but look out, Vitor is still dangerous.
Without a doubt, Couture needs to stay smart. He doesn't want to get over-aggressive and go for immediate finish. He wants to continue punishing.
And there goes Randy Couture. He's still punching away. Not much defense now by Vitor. That's it.
That's it. Randy Couture has taken out Vitor Belfort.
A stunning upset. Randy Couture, one of the best wrestlers on the planet, has taken out Vitor Belfort. John McCarthy stepped in, and the Phenom's run is derailed temporarily. And it was punching that did it. Who would have ever thought that? And the crowd here in Mississippi chanting USA. Belfort being attended to. And we certainly hope that Vitor is okay. Carlson Gracie is out there, his entire camp. Randy Couture waits patiently on the other end of the octagon.
Randy.
His wife Tricia, tremendous success story here. Louis Enrico Chiapparelli, his managers.
Rico Chiapparelli, a national champion from Iowa. Real American Wrestling is his club. And it was a series of uppercuts and short uppercuts that eventually led to the Vitor Belfort decision. Belfort is still down. What a beautiful, beautiful performance by Randy Couture. A great uppercut connecting first. Both had chances, but Couture got off first, and that enabled his punch to land. And once again, Belfort puts his head down, sensing this. Randy Couture is going to do it again. Right underneath with yet another undercut, and he's going to follow that up with repeated shots to Belfort's head. Belfort tries to come back with that left hand, and Couture closes the distance to keep the boxer from getting a chance to strike. And once he gets him down on the ground, some great knees to Belfort's head. They're short, but they're effective. And when he turns his knee in, he goes ahead and throws punches to the left side of Belfort's head. What an awesome performance by Randy Couture. Watching a lot of fighting posts on the net, there was only a couple people who thought Couture would win. One of them said he'd win by punching, and people laughed at him. Randy Couture has shocked the mixed martial arts world. This is as big an upset as Smith and Coleman. Maybe bigger because of everybody's expectation of Belfort.
Vitor Belfort is up. John McCarthy just told me he's okay. He stopped the bout because Vitor was not defending himself. All the punches were not scoring by Couture, but because he was not defending himself and was out of gas, McCarthy stopped the fight, and I certainly respect John's judgment.
Oh, without a doubt. If the fighter is not defending himself, that is the correct call. That is why there are no serious injuries in the UFC.
So Couture, undefeated in the octagon, wins the UFC heavyweight title elimination bout, and will get a shot at the championship in Japan. Bruce Buffer standing by.
Ladies and gentlemen, the referee has stopped the bout at 8 minutes and 17 seconds. For the winner, Randy Couture! Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big hand for Vitor Belfort!
Couture says in no-holds-barred tournaments, wrestlers can adapt very easily. The 1997 U.S. National Champion at 213 pounds, voted the most outstanding wrestler in the U.S. at the National Championships in Disney World, April 25th and 26th. And Vitor Belfort, I'm sure, will be back in the UFC. And it was the boxing that felled him.
It certainly was, and I think what really happened was Couture survived those first few minutes. Belfort's never been this long in the octagon. Certainly Couture is a master of conditioning, and he's in great shape from his World Championship performance. Here Couture is trying to keep close to Belfort, throwing all of those small uppercuts, and then look at this. Belfort brought his head up, his right arm is down. Couture takes full advantage with a crisp left hand. Great shot there. Belfort tries to answer, but it seems as though a lot of the sting is gone, a lot of his strength and speed is gone as well.
And there's the sweet reaction by Randy Couture. His stable is called Raw, Real American Wrestlers, and this was a real good performance.
And I like it. He's not over emotional.
Nope. He handles it gracefully.
That's right. He knows that he's still learning. He realizes he's got much to improve yet, but without a doubt, he had a great performance, and I think he really did shock the no-hold-bars world.
Let's go to Smokin' Joe Rogan.
I'm here with Randy Couture. Randy, congratulations, incredible victory. How you feeling right now?
Great. I'd just like to thank God for all his gifts. I'd like to dedicate this performance to the memory of a good friend of mine and a workout partner, Chad Flack, and all his family at home. I know they're watching. We'll miss Chad very much, and we're all with you. We'll get through this together. I'd like to thank the guys at Straight Blast, Boxing Works in Huntington Beach, or Hermosa Beach, excuse me.
In the beginning of this fight, when you came out, you were actually smiling to him, almost like you knew something everybody else didn't. What was that about? What were you thinking?
Just relaxed, you know. This is a good competition. Relaxed, I'm prepared, I'm ready to go. Having fun, and that's what it's all about.
What was your strategy coming into this fight, knowing that everybody that Victor's ever fought, he's never been to the ground with?
Well, that was my main goal, to weather the storm on his feet. I knew he was going to try and throw blows and catch me off guard. When he got close enough to hit, I wanted to try and take him down. I knew if we got into clinch situations, my Greco experience would pay off, and it did. I felt comfortable there. I controlled him. I wore him out. I knew the longer it would go, the more it would be in my favor.
Did you think that his endurance was suspect because all of his earlier fights had been quick?
I thought it would be suspect, yeah. I don't think anybody's really challenged him yet and taken him past a minute or so, so that was another strategy that we had going in. Make it go the distance.
So Randy Couture pulls the upset. Vitor Belfort's first loss ever in the UFC. And one thing about the Ultimate Fighting Championship, you can always expect the unexpected. And Jeff, how big do you think this upset was?
I compare it to Maurice Smith-Coleman. Everyone thought Coleman would walk through Maurice Smith, and Maurice Smith realized Coleman may not be in as good a shape he is, make shape a factor in the fight by setting a hard pace. And also everyone thought that Mark Coleman would ground and pound. Well, likewise, everyone thought Vitor Belfort's hands might get to Couture, but if that didn't work and Couture got a takedown, the Brazilian would have jiu-jitsu and submission on his side. But Couture realized, hey, make him go longer. He's never been there in the UFC. He's had some boxing experience, and the best thing that he did at that time was when Vitor led him, he rushed him, stayed close so that no punches could be thrown, and Greco-Roman upper body style wrestling and control led to those punches late in that fight. Couture the champion, and to do it by punches was absolutely phenomenal. I don't think anyone thought it was going to end that way unless it was down on the ground punching.
Well, this is reality combat, reality fighting. And coming up next, is the finals of the heavyweight tournament. I know we're taking you all over the place tonight, but this is back to the 4-man tournament. Dave Beneteau cannot go. He is replaced by an alternate. That is the format used in the UFC. And Dwayne Kaysen, who we both thought was excellent earlier, Jeff, the extension fighter, only 20 years of age, will get his shot in the heavyweight tournament final against Mark Kerr. He's going to be giving away a lot of weight, but he showed us a lot earlier. This still is a big test for a young guy.
Yes, he is. He's giving a lot of weight up in terms of the size of Mark Kerr. More importantly, he's giving it up to a better, bigger, more experienced and talented wrestler. The key here is really going to be, what does Kerr want to do with someone that he wasn't prepared to fight? Kaysen's very, very powerful, but inexperienced in NHB. And really, you heard Beneteau talk about during his interview whether he was going to fight. And I think what happened there is he realizes he's going against someone that's better at his own game.
Well, let's find out what happened with Beneteau. We go to Joe Rogan.
Guys, I'm back here with Dave Beneteau. Dave, I'd like to first say congratulations on your earlier victory. Now tell us what's going on with you.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to a few people. I'd like to say thanks to the coaching staff and all the wrestlers out at Simon Fraser and Burnaby Mountain who are watching tonight at the Barnett. Say hi to those guys. And I'd like to say hi to my friends and supporters in Ontario and my friends in Sherbrooke, Quebec. As far as the next fight, you know, it's just the way the draw went. Whoever got Carlos, either me or Kerr, you know, we knew that it'd probably be going the distance. I mean, it's hard to put Carlos away. He's a class act, and it went an 18-minute match. And you know, I got all the tools to beat Kerr, but I don't want to go in there half-cocked, and I sure hate to put a good performance off on a loss. And I'm not saying I would lose, but hey, I'm not going in there with all my snot, and I want to go in there 100% if I'm going to fight him or anybody else in the final. So it was sort of an executive decision, as I had sort of mentioned earlier, I had to make. And I think it's in the best interest of, as far as my performance, that I decline and wait for the next opportunity to fight him.
Well, that's smart thinking. Now, can we look forward to seeing you again in the UFC in the future?
You bet. You know, barring injuries and time permitting with training and other things, if my work is accommodating, you know, I'd love to be back. It's a big part of my life, and I've been doing that for the last few years, and I enjoy being here.
Well, congratulations again on your earlier victory, and it's too bad we can't see you again, but I'm sure we're going to see you in the future. Good luck. Back to you guys.
It is difficult to win and advance and stay healthy in the UFC. And Beneteau here just making a decision. There's no way he can go in there and be 100%. And so it's Dwayne Kaysen who gets the shot. And Kaysen with a very good debut this evening. But Mark Kerr is another specimen that we've got to keep an eye on tonight. Dwayne Kaysen has a family tradition that's a blessing and a burden.
I don't really want to use that as a crutch. I mean, they have their life and I have mine, and I have to be an individual. You know, I can't use what they've done to make me look good. I have to make myself look good. It's my responsibility, not theirs.
So Dwayne Kaysen is into the finals of the heavyweight tournament. A heavyweight evening. Jim West, his trainer-manager, sends him out there and accompanies him along the way. This young man does 1,500 push-ups a day, pushes a truck 2 miles on a track. A weightlifter in high school, a football player at Clemson. Only 5 months, however, training in mixed martial arts. And going up against a superb grappler such as Mark Kerr, I don't know if that's enough.
Now, Kaysen had a great debut. He's a powerful individual. He's going to be giving up some size. Certainly, he is a physical specimen. He trains hard. He's willing to learn. He's young. So he's got a bright future. But his immediate future is Mark Kerr.
And Mark Kerr has dedicated his life to rising to the top of his chosen sports. Mark Kerr with his thoughts about freestyle wrestling.
It's something that, you know, for right now, I've taken all my energy and effort and kind of focused it into what I'm doing now. And I still have in the back of my mind, there's a lot of unfinished business in wrestling. And if I feel like, after this year, if I really feel like I want to continue with wrestling, I really have to get going with that. Because it takes a lot of time to do it.
His credentials are impressive. He won the '94 World Cup.
1994 Freestyle Wrestling National Champion, second in 95 at the World Team Trials, second at the Pan Am Games in 95, an NCAA championship, an undefeated record in the Octagon. And he looks up to Mark Coleman in every way, shape, and form. Part of Mark's Hammer House for a couple of years here.
Well, the two are friends. They wrestled in the same weight class, and then Coleman really disappeared from the wrestling scene after Barcelona. And his loss to the World Team Trials and his second place finish in the Nationals was a guy named Kurt Angle, who was 95 world champion and 96 Olympic champion at 100 kilograms, 220 pounds.
He has been touted as Mark Coleman plus Coleman's skills and ferocity coupled with good leg kicks and terrific submissions. Here's Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final bout to determine the heavyweight champion of our elimination tournament. Dave Beneteau is unable to continue. Filling in for him after winning at 3 minutes and 43 seconds of his alternate bout. He stands 5 feet 9 inches tall and comes to us from Des Moines, Iowa. Weighing in at 215 pounds, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dwayne Kaysen! And the winner at 19 seconds of his first round. He is 28 years old and stands 6 feet 1 inch tall, weighing in at 253 pounds. Please welcome back, Mark the Specimen Kerr!
Big John McCarthy, third man of the Octagon. Mark Kerr, Dwayne Kaysen. This is the tournament final. Kaysen replacing Beneteau.
Are you ready? Let's get it on!
And we're off. Kerr quickly looking for a kick. Up on his toes pretty good. Did Kaysen ever expect to be here with Mark Kerr? Kerr picks him up and drops him quickly.
Well, he had no choice with that. I mean, Kerr in a double leg takedown against that body size, he's going to win that every time. Now it'll be a matter of, does Kaysen have a good guard? Has a half guard right there. Kerr's in a mount. Kerr's got the full mount here.
Look out, Kerr landing right hands, and he's dangerous from this position. He's got such ferocity and such power in his gloves.
Oh, and he turned. He gave his back to Kerr. Look for that rear naked choke. There it is. There it is. There it is.
He got him quickly. He turned and tapped. 54 seconds. And when the inexperienced Kaysen turned on his stomach, he was in trouble.
Well, people don't like to get hit in the head, and that's where Royce Gracie really ruled the guard, in that he took those kinds of shots and would not give up his back. The instant Kaysen gave up his back, Kerr took advantage of it.
Let's go to Bruce Buffer with the official time.
Ladies and gentlemen, winner and UFC heavyweight elimination tournament champion, Mark the Specimen Kerr!
54 seconds. Kaysen was just outmatched, outclassed. He came in tonight looking to win an alternate bout. He did, but he was not expecting Mark Kerr. Mark just made a beautiful move, and that was it.
Without a doubt, in this position, Kerr is going, again, he's looking for some kind of setup, a punch by Kaysen to go ahead, drop his hips, shoot a double leg takedown. And as that left hand came from Kaysen, Kerr's shot, he keeps the head in the middle and drives forward and drops him down. When he lands right here, you see a half guard. It is not a full guard, it's a half guard. And as they continue, he will pass that leg through that half guard, get to a full mount, straddling Kaysen's body, and now he rains blows. And at this point, Kaysen does not like it, and he's going to give Kerr his back. And the instant that he rolls to his belly, you'll see Kerr grapevine with his legs in the back. He'll grapevine both legs, and now he'll sink the rear naked choke right there. And the key now is for his chest pressure to come down, hold the arm steady. There's the hand tap by Kaysen. Great job by Mark Kerr.
So Mark Kerr gets his arms raised, something he's getting used to. He wins the heavyweight tournament final, not the elimination. And Kerr is now 2 for 2. 2 appearances in the octagon, 2 tournament victories. So Mark Kerr was just too big, too experienced, and too good for his opponent here. And he comes away so quickly with superb technique and superb power.
Well, without doubt, Kaysen wanted to use his wrestling skills to his advantage, and you're not going to do that against that kind of an individual with those kinds of skills, and more importantly, that size body. And his inexperience on the ground, when he went ahead and gave his back to Kerr, that ended the fight. And really, that came from the inexperience of taking blows in a half guard or a full mount, which Kerr eventually got to, and that's what led to Kaysen wanting to turn instead of continue to work, try to pass the guard, protect the head that way.
Kerr is standing by with our own Joe Rogan.
Guys, I'm here with the champion, Mark, the specimen Kerr. And who'd you like to thank before we get going?
I really wish my girlfriend Dawn was here with me, and I need to thank Adidas and Kickskins for their support and help. None of this is possible without having people really embrace it and understand that it's an art. There's world-class athletes doing it, and this is what we do for a living.
Now, did you expect this tournament to go by so quick? You had 2 fights. First fight, I misquoted. It wasn't the fastest, the 3rd fastest in UFC history. And then the second fight, also a quick fight. Did you expect that?
No, I expected, actually, I prepared for a longer fight. I prepared to fight Carlos Barreto in the finals. I really thought that he'd make it through the tournament, and he's notorious for going the full lengths of the bout. So I really had to concentrate on my cardiovascular conditioning to come in here prepared.
Now, I understand you're looking forward to fighting single fights from now on, no more tournaments.
I'm done with the tournaments. I hope I'm done. Hopefully there being a title bout coming up soon. So
now, we've had no one so far that's given you any competition at all. Who are you looking for to challenge in the future? Who do you see as being a tough competition for Mark Kerr?
Well, it's all the champions now. I mean, Randy Couture, you have Maurice Smith. Vitor is still, even though he lost tonight, he's still a very talented competitor. And I think that there's a lot of names out there right now that I'd really like to fight, and it's just where I fit into the whole scheme of things.
Now, I know a lot of the world-class wrestlers don't like to compete or fight against other world-class wrestlers. Do you feel that way?
I feel that what we have to do to promote our sport is we have to fight other forms of martial art. Right now, it doesn't do us a whole bunch of good to fight each other because we know what we're going to do. It's like what we do against other martial arts is really what we're looking to kind of push wrestling into the forefront.
Now, if you think that wrestling eliminates all the other martial arts, would then you'd be interested in fighting other wrestlers?
If that's ever possible, yeah. But for right now, the way things are looking is that there's enough of other competitors out there that are at the level that can really promote this whole sport. And it's going to be great.
Bruce and Jeff have a question for you. What is it?
Well, Mark Kerr, I wanted to ask Mark, Joe, if you could, the fact that is this form of fighting, the UFC, is it tailor-made for him? Is it something that he believes was made for him?
They want to know, is this form of fighting, Ultimate Fighting, is that tailor-made for you? Do you feel like this is a tailor-made form of fighting for you, for your style?
Yeah, I think it really, to say it's tailor-made is not correct because we have to tailor it ourselves. We have to go out there and we have to get the additional skills that are required to do it, but I think we have the basic foundation to be able to do no-holds-barred mixed martial arts competitions to do very well at it. And tonight is evident of that.
Now, when you train, do you train to avoid submissions or use submissions, or do you train to like Mark Coleman style ground and pound? How do you look?
Actually what I've been concentrating on is trying to take and learn to avoid submissions. Therefore I can try to understand them and try to implement them in the future into some of my competitions.
So you do train not just for wrestling, but use a lot of jiu-jitsu submission?
Absolutely. It's my whole motto is if you don't evolve, you become extinct. And if I was just a wrestler, I wouldn't be that good at this. I'd be okay. But now that I've incorporated all the different disciplines, I really think that it pushes me to the forefront of being one of the better ones out there.
Well, you certainly are definitely one of the better ones, if not the best. Congratulations, you're a great champion. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Joe. Still one big fight ahead. Maurice Smith, the upset in the last UFC over Mark Coleman, and now back quickly to defend his UFC heavyweight championship. And there he is getting ready for the big fight. Well, when you talk about big, you have to talk about John McCarthy, the jiu-jitsu competitor, LAPD police officer. Here's a closer look.
Here we go, baby. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on! Get up, get up, get up! Get yourself up and get ready. You face me.
Knock it off. John, that was way late. That's up to Art to disqualify. Knock it off. Well, will you please go petition that? Oh, you bet I will. Knock it off.
Because you're getting hit and you're not responding. And he was hitting you and that was it. You're not responding.
My role is to make sure that the rules of the UFC are followed by the fighters, that the fighters come out and obey those rules, put on the best show that they can put on, and that at the end of the fight, be it if one is submitted or not, or if I stop the fight, that both fighters are able to get out of the octagon and come back and fight another day.
You're done. You're done. That's it. Okay? So come here. No. Get up! Get up, Scott! Get up!
I enjoy the sport. I love the sport. I think it's the sport of the future. I so much admire the guys that actually step foot into the octagon to compete. They are extremely tough people. They're very talented people. They have to be in great cardiovascular shape. So I have a lot of admiration for the people in there.
Let's get it on! Let's get it on! Let's get it on!
Mills Lane was a boxing official, and at the beginning, he doesn't do it to start the fight, but in his instructions, and he started it with Jerry Cooney and Larry Holmes, he told him, well, get it on. And so it was like, that's what you tell him. You tell him, well, let's get it on. That's what you're doing. It's like going out to battle, going out to a football game, anything like that. So I said, well, I'm just going to ask them, hey, are you ready? And they're going to have to tell me, yeah, they're ready. And I'm going to ask the other guy if he's ready. And I'm going to tell him, well, let's get it on. And that's how it all started.
John McCarthy has the honor.
Squad is 4, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on!
Big John McCarthy is so important to the UFC because he's got the fighter's safety in mind first.
And without a doubt, that's the biggest question about the UFC. And like he said, he wants to see them get out of the octagon safely. We've had 150 martial arts fights with him in control in the octagon, and people have been able to walk away and come back and fight another day. He is the reason for the survivability of the UFC against some of its really, really repulsive critics. He is, without a doubt, a very good referee.
All right, so we're getting set for our main event of the evening, and the man who is looking to defend the title is UFC heavyweight champion Maurice Smith, who was training to defend his belt against Dan the Beast Severn, then the last-minute switch to Tank Abbott, and it didn't bother the champion, who knows that in fighting, as in life, change is the only constant. Maurice Smith is a kickboxing legend, a specialist in the upset and the knockout. Smith established himself as one of the most gifted strikers in the world, a champion with lightning-fast punches and kicks, and absolutely brilliant strategies in the ring. Already a legend in Japan, Smith came to the attention of the freestyle world when he became Extreme Fighting's final heavyweight champ. But each bout presents a unique set of problems requiring unique solutions. And Smith knows that in fighting, the past does not equal the future.
What I've done in the past doesn't necessarily, carry over to here, because now I'm in a whole different genre now. And any given day in a punching combat sport, I can lose. I've been very fortunate so far, but my main thing is to try to win. And I can't guarantee that I won't get knocked out one day, or I won't lose, but I won't win. The thing is, I've been very fortunate in not being knocked out or losing fights, but there comes a time when it can happen.
Despite his successful career, Smith came into the UFC as a heavy underdog against champion Mark Coleman. Few thought Smith, the striker, had the skills to survive the grappler's onslaught and ferocity. In one of the most exciting upsets in UFC history, Smith showed astonishing skill and will. He took everything the Olympian had and led the champion into a land of fatigue and frustration. Smith astounded the pundits when he proved to be the Houdini of the octagon, escaping from the master grappler and bringing the bout back to its feet. Time and time again, Smith perplexed and pummeled a dazed, exhausted, and soon-to-be ex-UFC champion. After 2 punishing overtimes that saw Coleman desperately trying to hang on, the outcome was announced.
We have a unanimous decision with the winner and new UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Maurice Smith!
Well, it's been very nice to win another title. You know, I mean, I've been very fortunate in my life to have won some of the titles in combat sports. Winning this one has actually skyrocketed my notoriety in America, which is nice. And I thank UFC for what they've done for me, and I'll continue to help them. Because it is a good sport. You know, it's a great sport, and you know, we have a lot of good people here, and I'm so happy. I'm elated.
Tonight, champion Maurice Smith defends his hard-earned title against one of the most ferocious fighters in the octagon, David Tank Abbott, but he plans to emerge victorious. Maurice Smith will take on David Tank Abbott. It doesn't say nobody's home, it says nobody allowed in. Tank wants to prepare by himself, and that doesn't surprise us a bit. One man volunteered to step into the fray tonight, folks, for the title bout when Dan Severn, the challenger, injured his hand. That man, David Tank Abbott, grabbed the chance to do what he loves to do best, brawl. After crushing the competition, but finishing second in the ultimate tournament of champions, Tank Abbott is on a mission.
I go out there to bang. Whatever happens, happens.
Tank Abbott, the calls went out by the UFC hierarchy, and only one man answered the call. David Tank Abbott. Fighting for him is a religion. This has been a night of upsets. Will the surprise continue? Tank Abbott in the octagon has lost many times. He's only 6-5, but he's lost to some of the best. Dan Severn, Don Frye, Vitor Belfort, Oleg Tektarov.
Really, the only questionable loss there was Ferrazzo, and he had a bad knee. Power puncher, power puncher, power puncher, that's Tank Abbott. He's not great on the ground. He can perform if he's caught in the guard, and without a doubt, he is always dangerous.
He has got a puncher's chance. His opponent is the defending champion out of Seattle, Washington, Maurice Smith. He's one man who's never sleepless in Seattle. He hasn't lost a championship fight in 17 years. I mentioned he was a kickboxing legend, 58, 6-2, 45 KOs, adept in Muay Thai, and now he has got to Frank Shamrock, who is brilliant in getting a fighter prepared for a big battle. And Maurice has learned the submission game extremely fast and extremely well.
Yes, he can. He shocked everyone with the performance against Coleman, elevating himself now to the champion. And he continues to show us that he wants to improve. He's worked with the Lion's Den, in particular Frank Shamrock, to help with his ground game. But in the striking category, he's got all the tools. Certainly a brilliant tactician. He will study and figure a way to approach his opponent. Power striker, both with hands and feet, very well-rounded with the striking capabilities, and we saw with defending himself on the ground, and he's got a big heart.
Here are the numbers for this UFC Heavyweight Championship fight as we reveal the tale of the tape. Maurice Smith, kickboxer against Tank Abbott. You can call him a pit fighter, you can call him an ultimate fighter, you can call him a street fighter. Smith 3 years older, Abbott's got the big weight advantage. Maurice Smith has the experience on the ground, but Tank has got power in his gloves. Let's go up to Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final event of the evening. This fight determines the UFC Heavyweight Champion of the world. Beginning with the fighter standing to my left. He is 32 years old and already a legend in the UFC. He's the UFC 6 and the ultimate runner-up. He stands 6 feet and weighs in at 277 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Octagon veteran, the street fighter from Huntington Beach, California, David Tank Abbott! And to my right, he is from Seattle, Washington, a former WKA and ISKA kickboxing and Muay Thai champion, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing in at 223 pounds. He is the current UFC Heavyweight Champion of the world, Maurice Smith.
How good is Maurice Smith? We'll find out tonight. Abbott wants a knockout. He's going to look to do it quickly.
What you came for. Are you ready?
Smith can knock people out with his feet.
Smith said he will not stand there and trade punches with Tank Abbott. He said the first 4 minutes he's got to get through to make fatigue come into play. Tank came into this with no strategy or plan. Didn't watch any videos. Says he wants to be blind. Come in and let his instincts take over.
And Tank goes to the ground. He tried to get to Maurice and stumbled. And he's okay.
And Maurice is drawing him in, forcing him to spend lots of energy with attacks like that. That will accelerate fatigue.
Smith will utilize his quickness to stay away from Tank's
And Tank's dropping that lead arm, baiting Smith to throw a punch.
Smith continues to circle, and Tank measures his opponent. A good fight for David is part of his daily regimen.
Tank might want to just stand in the center and not move, make the champ look bad by him circling away and not engaging, but he continues to pursue. Now he's standing a little bit still.
Tank lunged there, but missed. Tank's been coached by Jesse Reed, a tremendous boxing guy. Maurice Smith in no rush and very leery of Tank's punches.
And he's circling the Tank's right. Always circling the Tank's right. Now he's got him up against the fence. This is where Tank wants him. He's got him grounded. He'll look to rip the legs out, try to bring him down to the octagon mat.
Tank trying to get that right hand open for a shot to the midsection.
Keep his hand up. We're going with his hand up. Now you're going to make a strike, Mo.
Tank's right hand is his power hand, but we've also seen him throw a great left hook.
Tank needs to be careful. He gets that head too far down. He might be looking at a knee from Maurice Smith. Maurice could be baiting him, holding it up, holding it up, holding it up, and all of a sudden let it down.
Oh, Tank landed, but Maurice is back. Trying to get him a guard as Tank tries to score. This is what happened in the Coleman bout, but Maurice withstood the damage early.
Got to be careful where he elbows there. It can't be to the back of the head. Maurice seems to have all his faculties. If he got hit, it was just a flash hit. He seems to be all there right now. In fact, he just kicked Tank Abbott.
And he landed with a right hand to Tank's head.
This is where we'll find out if Tank has schooled himself how to pass the guard so that he can use effective strikes.
And endurance again as the fight goes on will be a factor.
Tank's been here before with Oleg Taktarov, but he couldn't put the Russian away, eventually getting caught in a choke and submitted.
But that was in the high altitude of Casper, Wyoming.
Smith, effective, short punches, couple of elbows. Tank's now reaching back. He's looking to try to pry the leg up. First step in passing the guard.
Smith
One way to pass the guard.
Tank trying to get to a side mount, but could not. Now he does.
Side mount Abbott.
Tank looks quick tonight.
He could actually elbow with that right arm under the side of Maurice Smith's head.
Tank trying to land punches. He tried to elevate himself.
What he tried to do, I believe, is try to put his knee into Maurice Smith's stomach, and then launch strikes from there. Try to keep the side mount, but as he raised himself up, Smith went right back to the guard. Smart tactic by Smith.
Crowd starting to chant Tank here at Casino Magic in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Along the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
And Tank seems to be pacing himself here. This is a good tactic by Tank. Most of the time, you get too aggressive on top, you spend a lot of energy and come away with really no success. And Smith wants Tank to get tired, so to him, each time Tank flurries and comes away with nothing, that's an incremental success that's going to add up to a gap at the end of the fight, fatigue, that will allow Smith an opportunity to come back.
Tank gets through with a couple of rights. Smith blocked one, but Tank got through.
And now Tank will go probably back to a stationary position, compose himself, and then come back up again for some more heavy blows. The key here is for Tank to pace himself and not go blind and rage with aggressiveness.
Now Maurice
key lock,
trying to grab that arm.
He's trying to snake his arm through and lock it on his own wrist. That would have been a key lock, but Tank able to muscle out.
Tank is fighting a good fight right now.
Yes, he is. And tactically, he's fighting well in terms of resting before coming up and raining those big blows. And here, Maurice doesn't want him to rest, so he's trying to move, trying to make Tank work.
The question is, do his chances wane as his stamina decreases?
Tank's do, absolutely. No doubt about it, and that's the key to Maurice Smith's battle plan. He doesn't want to stay down here. Certainly he wants Tank to get tired, and then late in the fight, like Coleman, try to pull an escape like that.
Tank continues to work.
And this is smart now. He rests when Maurice Smith rests. But he needs to get his legs underneath him before throwing those punches. From the angle he's at, they're really not effective.
Almost 6 minutes in. There'll be a 15-minute time limit plus 2 3-minute overtimes in this UFC Heavyweight Championship, UFC 15 Collision Course.
Tank looking to get to the side mount, and he's done it. He's got a side mount. Now we'll see if he can bring that knee in.
Tank is really working. He got a little high there. It was hard to land punches to the head when you're almost over the top.
And Smith now works himself back into the guard. Hits Tank with a couple of elbows to the top and back of the head. He's better be careful where those land. Striking to the back of the head of the neck is illegal.
Smith just punching here and there to the back of Tank's head.
Going for the key lock again. He's got it. He's got it.
Tank trying to wrestle free.
Smith can't use his hips to use it for added pressure.
Tank showing patience. Tank is showing patience. Oh, now he's in some pain.
He's all right.
He got free. He grimaced and got through it. And he looked over at us kind of as if to say, I'm okay, don't worry about me.
It's going to be interesting how the judges look at the strikes of Maurice Smith on the ground here. Those elbows are adding up in terms of points.
And now we've got a stalemate. McCarthy brings the fighters back to their feet.
And Tank now starting to look tired.
Tank did not want to get up. He just wanted to ride as long as he could. He's got to watch a kick from Maurice Smith. This is where he almost caught Coleman flush.
Tank does look a bit tired here.
Watch the kick from Smith.
Watch a big haymaker. It looked like Tank was trying to play possum there and load up with a big one.
A good low kick by Maurice.
And this is what Maurice wanted, a tired Tank Abbott on the feet where he can pick and choose the strikes he wishes to land.
Don't grab your trunks, and that's it.
Tank doesn't want to have any more of it.
He doesn't want any more, and Maurice Smith has defended his title. And John McCarthy says you're not defending yourself. And it's a quicker stoppage than we thought.
Tank is exhausted. He has little time to prepare for this fight, and Maurice made him work real hard in the guard, and that burned him out. That burned him out.
So John McCarthy talks to Tank Abbott while Maurice Smith celebrates. Tank is flat out of gas.
Smith took some punishment early, but he knew he would, and he knew all he had to do was survive that early go. He felt the Tank wouldn't be in the shape that he is, and even in the guard, he made him work.
So John McCarthy saw something that we didn't, because Tank is flat out in his back right now.
I think Tank said he had enough after that one kick to his leg.
Let's go to Joe Rogan.
I think Tank said he had enough.
All right, Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner at 8 minutes and 9 seconds, and still the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Maurice Smith!
You may not like the stoppage, but after the John McCarthy interview, he does look for safety first, and he saw something there. Let's go to Joe Rogan. Joe, are you there?
It's a nice shirt. Okay, thank you. I'm here with the champion, Maurice Smith. Maurice, congratulations. First of all, what are your thoughts on the fight?
It was good. Tank, like I said, would be a strong puncher. There's no question. He's a striker, and I have to worry about that. But I figured I had the stamina on him. I mean, I'm getting tired too, but I know I'll outlast him, hopefully.
What were you thinking when you found out that Dan Severn had canceled and Tank Abbott was coming in? What were your thoughts?
Well, we had an idea that Dan wouldn't show up because he fought Kimo over there, and Kimo's not a slouch by any stretch of the imagination. Therefore, if he went the distance, it'd be a hard fight. So I was forewarned. Then I figured, okay, well, it'd probably be Tank.
A lot of people thought that this would be a no-win situation for you. If you win, people have already beaten Tank, but if you lose, it's, obviously.
Yeah, but Tank's tough. I mean, there's no question. Everybody can sit and say that about Tank. Tank's a very strong fighter. He's very dangerous. That's why he's always here. If he wasn't any good, he wouldn't be here.
Did you alter your strategy when you found out that it was going to be Tank?
My main plan always to stay on my feet to be a striker. And now, when I said before, grapplers, I'm not too worried about them striking so much, but striker, I'm more cautious. So that's why I stuck and moved, and hopefully the Tank will get tired, which he did. And when we get to the ground, it'll be a lot of work for him as well.
All right, you're headed to Japan now to fight Randy Couture. How do you feel about that?
Hey, I'm going to Disneyland now. But no, I'm looking forward to fighting Randy and anybody else. This is a great sport, and we have great competitors, and I appreciate it, Tank.
We got Tank Abbott here. Tank, your motto's always been anybody, anywhere, anytime, and you proved it again. Always giving the fans their money's worth. What's your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, well, as of last Saturday, I stepped off a bar stool and I stepped into the octagon tonight. I haven't been training, I've been partying. Two of my favorite things to do. And at least I came out here and went for it. I don't give a about a beating. It don't mean anything to me. It just, I fight for the fun, and that's it. The fun.
Well, you absolutely show more courage than 90% of the other competitors out there, and you're willing to go at any time, and the fans respect that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's no coincidence why I'm here, because no one else has balls enough to come in here and fight. Like I said, I haven't been training. I got noticed as of Tuesday I was for surely fighting. Where am I? I'm in here fighting. Oh, well, it was a bunch of fun. If I was in shape, I don't think it'd be a fight at all.
Thanks again, Tank. Thanks for a tremendous effort. Maybe we'll see a rematch in the future.
I would hope so. I'd like to have a lot of rematches.
We're back with Maurice. Maurice, any final thoughts now about your fight with Randy Couture in Japan?
No, Couture's going to be very tough because he's got good wrestling ability. And he's probably going to get me to the ground because he can shoot really good. He'll be a hard fight. Everybody that competes in the octagon are very tough and very hard, so don't underestimate anybody.
What are your thoughts on Randy Couture when he had beaten Victor Belfort today? Did you see that fight?
Yeah, I saw that fight. And what we figured, our crew here figured that these guys, like Belfort and some of the guys, they were good for a few minutes. They never been tested long term, and this is what happened for Vitor. Vitor's going to probably go home and train very hard for cardio because he has so much weight. I think he did a good job, but he has to understand that strength isn't everything. You got to have muscle endurance.
Well, congratulations. You're a great champion, and again, you proved it tonight. And I know everybody out here is rooting for you. Yeah, keep it going, baby. Back to you guys. I'm coming.
We talked to Big John McCarthy, and John said that Tank said he had enough. and therefore the fight was stopped. So it wasn't McCarthy jumping in. He essentially tapped out without tapping out. He just said he had had enough, and that was the way the fight ended. Tank said he gave you his effort, but he had no gas left. Let's go back to Bruce Buffer for the presentation of the belt.
Maurice Smith, we'd like to present you with your championship belt because you are still the UFC Heavyweight World Champion! Presenting the belt is the CEO of SCG Sports, Mr. Robert Meyerowitz, and Mr. Art.
All right, the presentation goes on in the octagon. A little bit of a technical glitch there, but Jeff Blatnick, it has been a very intriguing night. We had an upset. We had a guy defend his title who is very good and kind of underrated because he just finds a way to win, and that is Maurice Smith. And as he pointed out, Tank is a guy who's a quality fighter, or else he wouldn't have been here.
Well, I think Carlo Beretta, he had a great fight with Dave Beneteau. Beneteau was given the win. That was an upset. Randy Couture and Belfort. What a classic fight. That goes down as one of the greatest ever in UFC history. And of course, there's our champion, Maurice Smith. Very adaptable within the octagon. Great striker, has learned the ground game. He looked very good with Tank in the ground, constantly moving from that guard position, making Tank work, and that took the energy out of Tank Abbott and allowed Maurice Smith to go ahead and strike hard, and that's what Tank didn't want. He couldn't defend himself. He was exhausted.
So tonight we had a heavyweight tournament in Collision Course, and Mark Kerr won that, and he won that very impressively. He looks like he's one of the best in reality combat fighting.
I'm sure Kerr would have liked to meet either Beneteau or Carlos Beretta. He had prepared for both of them. As it turned out, neither one of them were able to advance, and that's why Kerr had such an easy time here.
And Randy Couture winning the elimination bout, and Maurice Smith defending his UFC heavyweight championship. So with Japan looming large, it will be Maurice Smith against Randy Couture. If things stay the way they are right now, David Tank Abbott tried to come to the octagon with a full head of steam and mean, but it lasted just 8 minutes. And then Maurice Smith, with 2 kicks, got the wobbly Tank in a position where he had to tell John McCarthy, I've had enough. So the belt stays with Maurice. He's no ordinary Smith. He's one of the best reality combat fighters in the world. The UFC Heavyweight Championship to Maurice Smith. The UFC title elimination bout to Randy Couture. The heavyweight tournament to Mark Kerr. It's been great coming to the Magic Dome at Casino Magic in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. For Jeff Blatnick, Joe Rogan, and Bruce Buffer, I'm Bruce Beck saying good night from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, where Maurice Smith still reigns as the UFC Heavyweight Champion.